Hello, everyone. Yes, that was from the Umineko episode 1 stage play. I figured I'd throw that in as a little surprise because that part of the opening always screws me up so much. Anyway, welcome everybody. Let's get on to it. To clarify at the beginning here, yes, we will be finishing episode 1 today. I'm gonna give sort of a, how do I say this, like an itinerary, I guess, for those of you who don't know anything about Umineko, again, just so you know how it's gonna go. So first of all, we're gonna load into where we left off on episode 1. We're gonna get all the way to the end of it. At the end of every episode, there are 2 additional segments with their own credit rolls, because the main episode will have a credit roll, and then there are 2 additional sections. Each episode has 2 tea party segments. One is just the regular tea party, and then the second is a question mark section, which is sometimes referred to as the witch's tea party. Every episode has one. They are important. So please do not skip them or you will miss so much. So once we get to the end of the proper episode, we'll be doing both of the tea parties, and then we will discuss the future of Umineko once we get there. So, let's begin. And before we get into this, why don't we go ahead and refresh ourselves on who we lost last time. We've already gone over the people who died in the shed, so if you want to recap on that, you know, that happens at the end of stream 1, but I also go over the victims at the beginning of stream 2, so let's just go over the people who died in stream 2. So first of all, Ushuramiya Ava was found on the bed of a guest room inside the mansion, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into her forehead. The windows and door to the room were locked from the inside, and even the chain was set. No way a human could have killed her. Then, we lost Hideyoshi at the same time. Found in the bathroom of the same guest room that Ava was found in, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead just the same as Ava. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door while the chain is set. Can't see and can't reach. Go on. Could a human have killed them then? After that, we found Kinzo. Ushiramiya Kinzo was burned in the incinerator with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead. The old mage's wish scattered, ungranted. This is but one possible result of the gamble he always knew was not in his favor. And finally, we can update ourselves on Canon. I'm sad to say it, Canon lovers. He's gone. With a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his chest, he was found in the boiler room. How presumptuous for furniture. And that updates us on everybody who left in stream 2. So now we can move on to the proper game. Ahem.
In the end, Canon-kun did not regain consciousness, even though Dr. Nanjo and the rest did all they could to heal him. There was very little that could be done on an island like this without medicine or proper facilities. However, Canon-kun was the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only he could give us some kind of clue. But by the time he was carried here, it was already too late.
My sincerest apologies. Without proper facilities, there was nothing I could do about such a serious wound.
No, that's perfectly understandable. Thank you so much for giving it your very best.
Dr. Nanjo's shirt had been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine the devotion with which he had tried to save Canon-kun's life up until the very last second. Jessica was crouched in the corridor, crying in anguish. She had probably been taking care of Canon-kun until the moment of his death. George Aniki tried to approach her with words of comfort, but when Jessica pushed him away, he stopped trying to interfere and left her alone. If only I hadn't let Canon-san go alone. Oh.
Don't let that bother you. Even if you had been with him, you may have been attacked as well. He foolishly jumped forward and paid for his mistake.
How can you say it like that?
Canon-kun spotted the killer and bravely stood up to them. If only Kumasawa-san had gone with him, the killer might have hesitated and chosen to run away. Emotion-filled words that I never thought I'd hear from the normally tactful Jessica tumbled out of her mouth. Kumasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head.
Jessica, now isn't the time for words. Even I feel as if, and you're probably the same, as if I don't have the first clue what's going on anymore. As if my heart is going to split open.
There were tears in George Aniki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I had already cried myself dry, so I didn't want to cry anymore. However, I felt myself the pain in their hearts.
Hey, thank you, Mal, for the $5. Really appreciate it.
It's alright, Jessica One-chan. You'll be able to meet Kanon again soon.
Stop it! You aren't helping!
Beatrice will revive the dead, and even the love they possessed. So you'll definitely be able to meet him soon. Then everyone will be able to live in peace.
This Beatrice, who you say gave you that letter yesterday, is she the one who killed Kanon-kun? Where is she? Where is she hiding? I'll find her and tear her limb from limb. Say it! You know it, don't you? You know who the killer really is! What do you know, and what are you hiding? Tell me, damn it!
Milady, please, stop.
Beatrice exists! Exists!
Damn it, let go of me, Kenji-san! Maria knows who the killer is, and she's been hiding it on purpose. She must be telling them what we're doing, guiding them as they kill us. Jessica, be silent.
Oh. Yeah. Quick warning, it's not nearly as severe as the stuff with, like, Rosa and Maria from Stream 1, but just so you know, there is, like, a parental slap coming up, so just be prepared for that if that sort of thing bothers you.
Jessica rushed at Maria and grabbed hold of her. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calmed. The next thing I heard was the sound of Aunt Natsuhi slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful, sobbing voice resounded through the hall.
Maria-chan, I know that there's no way you're one of the culprits. You've been with us since the beginning, and there was no time for you to communicate with any killer. So I want you to tell me something. This Beatrice who handed you the letter yesterday, who was she?
Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had some doubts about Maria. He hadn't tackled Maria. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did. Aniki. I asked her the same thing only just now. The answer won't be any different.
I want to hear it from Maria-chan's mouth. Who is Beatrice?
Well, even if I tell you, you won't believe me anyway.
What do you mean by that? Is it possible that the killer is someone we know well, and that for some reason you're covering for them by remaining silent? Who gave you that letter?
I got it from Beatrice. I'll say it no matter how many times you ask. I got the letter from Beatrice. George Oni-chan, do you refuse to believe in Beatrice because she's not an opponent you can hit? You want to turn your feelings of helplessness into violence and beat someone up, so you won't be satisfied unless your opponent is a human you can hit. So even if I tell you the truth, you won't be able to accept it. So it's pointless for me to tell you. You won't believe. But I will keep on saying it. I'll say it because it's true. Beatrice exists. The door to the Golden Land will soon be opened, and that's where I'm going. Beatrice promised. In that world, Mama is nice, and Papa is with us and is also nice. I want to go there right away. Everyone is afraid of Beatrice, and that's only natural. But calm yourselves. Beatrice told me herself. By the time the typhoon has passed, she will have ended everything. Out!
Maria, I don't actually dislike you being talkative, but let's leave it at that for now. I'll bet that this is all a pretty happy situation for you, since you're always going on about how witches exist, but keep that to yourself for the time being. Leave everyone else out of it.
This brat. I've long thought she was creepy. But she's actually screwed up. Somehow she's screwed up. Don't you think so, Battler? Kenji-san? Kumasawa-san? What about you, Mom? Maria knows who the killer is and she's hiding it. Sure, maybe she hasn't done anything directly. But she's definitely the killer's accomplice. That's right, she's a spy. We can't let her stay with us any longer.
Maria-chan, you must learn that there are some times where indiscreet discussion must be avoided. If you continue to add any more oil to the fire, even I will get very angry.
Aunt Natsuhi glared at Maria with frightening eyes. Maria was used to Auntie Rosa's loud style of scolding, but she apparently hadn't developed a resistance to this kind of silent telling off. She shrugged and kept her mouth shut. A desolate feeling filled up the room. It felt as though things would just get more complicated if anyone spoke. How many people have already died? 6 in Dad's group. Also both Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi, Kanon-kun, grandfather. There were a whole 18 people on this island. 10 of those had been killed. More than half of us had been killed. And at this stage, there was absolutely no guarantee that the remaining 8 were going to be all right. Anyway, now's not the time for Discord. We'll go back to using Skype. I'm sorry. Now that we're certain that the killer can enter and leave the mansion at will and strike out of nowhere, we must give our undivided attention to surviving until tomorrow. I agree strongly with Aunt Natsuhi. We can take our time racking our brains over the culprit later tonight. For now, we should consider where to barricade ourselves in. As I said this, I pointed out the clock to everyone. It was already 8 at night. We had been receiving shocks over and over again since the early morning, and both our bodies and our minds were completely tired out. There was still a long, long time until tomorrow. We needed to find some place to barricade ourselves in, somewhere we could rest our bodies and feel even the slightest bit safe.
I agree. Everyone is already pushing their mental and physical limits, myself included. I believe it would be wise to consider our plans immediately.
Settled then. There's a high probability that the enemy has the equivalent of a master key. Were Shen and Kanon-kun and Goda-san holding master keys?
Yes. As long as they were on duty, they would have them.
We didn't want to disturb the scene, so we didn't investigate this, but we can't eliminate the possibility that a key had been stolen from one of them.
Even before that, we know there's a chance the culprit visited the servant room at some point in time, so they could unlock the shutter to the Rose Garden shed. I think it's very likely they'd obtained a master key while there.
There were many servants serving the Ushirimiya family. Because of that, there were several master keys.
Furthermore, every time the shifts changed, the keys were passed between servants. She had to admit that the arrangement had been somewhat sloppy.
Assuming they did borrow a bundle of keys from the pocket of one of the murdered servants, is there any safe place that even those keys couldn't open?
Because of the nature of our jobs, we had been entrusted with keys to all of the rooms, all of them in the mansion and in the guest house. So in other words, no matter where we hole up and lock ourselves in, it'd just be pointless.
Fine by me. Who needs goddamn locks? If you're gonna come on, damn it! I'll kill you first! The enemy won't approach us from the front. I don't know about the first 6, but if we look at what happened to my parents and Kanon-kun, and even grandfather, the enemy had only gone after isolated people. They don't have the power to assault all of us openly in a secure room. That's right. It's just like Aniki says. Maybe Auntie's rifle can serve to stave off the enemy? Save off the enemy, yeah.
I hope that's so, but...
Maria, I know you want to say something, but keep it to yourself and stay quiet for a while.
Maria probably wanted to say that witches weren't afraid of things like guns or something like that. But if she were to say it out loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy.
I had noticed and decided to put a stop to it.
If I may, there's one place that cannot be entered even with the servant's keys.
Where's that?
Very well. It's the master's study.
I'm against this. I don't even want to think about going in Grandfather's creepy room.
How many keys can gain access to that room? There are 2. I always have one of them. The other was held by the master himself, but just now, from the body in the boiler room.
Genji-san took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened it, showing us the burnt and filthy key to the study. Then he showed it alongside his own key, which we had once lent to Aunt Natsuhi.
Normally, I should have left the master's key for the police, but he had ordered me to always protect the safety of the study, so I borrowed it for the time being. I see. Which means the Kinzo's study is the only safe location right now.
It would appear that way. I don't even want to think about being shut up all night in that room of peculiar smells, but it appears we must accept that his room is safer than anywhere else right now. Grandfather locked himself up in the safe room, but the culprit still brought him out and killed him. We can't say for certain that it's truly safe.
If we go with your theory, the grandfather skillfully outlasted the receipt and then left the room of his own free will. It might still have some worth as a place to barricade ourselves in.
You're too optimistic, Aniki. However, at the same time, I thought he brought up an interesting point. After all, this gives us a chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed door had been opened. If we assume that the culprit used some technique to abduct Grandfather from his study, they would have had to show us the same trick again if they wanted to assault us in the study. It's an opportunity to force the culprit to demonstrate that trick right before our eyes. If they're a real witch, we would be forcing them to say "Open Sesame" and open the door by magic right in front of us. But such a thing is probably impossible. If you flip over the chessboard, you realize that the culprit is obviously just trying to act like they're a witch. If they really were a witch, all they'd have to do is appear in front of us and show off a spell colorful enough to silence all of our doubts. Since they've avoided doing that, everything must be the work of a fake witch who wants us to think otherwise. Therefore, a culprit who used a technique other than magic to defeat the locked room couldn't open the door before our eyes. Is Grandfather's room big enough to stuff 8 people in?
Yes. There's a bed, a sofa, and blankets, so while it is not luxurious, it will be more than enough to spend the night. There's also a sink, a bathroom, a refrigerator, and a liquor cabinet.
Whoa, that's incredible! But isn't that weird? You're saying he built another house inside his house? That's pretty cramped for the last house of someone like our grandfather, who bought a whole island and realized all of his dreams. Yes, it is. After some point in time, Father wouldn't trust any other place even inside the mansion. We always sneered about how he shut himself up in there, and this time we're the ones who were going to shut ourselves up. Huh. Jessica spat the words out.
Jessica-chan, it feels like you'd rather go search for the culprit than stay shut up somewhere.
Of course. I don't think we'll be able to find them if we just start searching now. In the end, we can't do anything but wait. Then it doesn't matter where we wait, does it? I won't run away or hide. Why don't we just take it easy in the parlor, watching TV or something and waiting for the great Beatrice-sama to appear? It will be perfectly satisfactory for her not to appear. There's no need for us to expose the culprit.
Well said. We shouldn't take too many risks before the police get here.
Thank you, Dr. Nanjo. I think we should move to Father's study. Certainly, considering the possibility that Father was taken out of there, there's no guarantee of absolute safety. However, just as Battler-kun reasoned, I also can't deny the possibility that Father left the study of his own accord and was attacked outside. That crazy theory had just been what I came up with to stop the argument. However, just as Auntie Ava had said, even though the trick would work, I can't begin to explain what motive could have made Grandfather do something so awkward to sneak out of his own study. Plus, that trick of hiding under the bed and waiting for the receipt to be removed before escaping couldn't have been used unless Grandfather had known that the receipt was wedged in the door. Auntie Ava hadn't pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd the theory was. Then does that mean that as Auntie Ava claimed, the door was sealed and it was a locked room? Is it a doubtless fact that Aunt Natsuhi was the culprit, and that the room was a locked room? If Auntie were here now, she would probably make that claim openly, and do me the favor of blowing my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet that all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, had to be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than shutting ourselves up in the parlor again and saying, nothing went wrong while we were in there before. No, wait. Were we safe only because we were shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moving to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? No good, no good. No goddamn good at all. My flimsy head's about to break out in a fever. As I keep flipping over the chessboard, the real and the inverse keep switching with each other over and over, and I lose my ability to believe anything. When it seems the culprit is one of the 18, I want to believe in Beatrice. And once I start believing in Beatrice, I start wanting to find the culprit amid the 18. That keeps spinning around forever, and in the end, my thoughts hadn't taken one step from where they started. How far back in the past was it that Kyrie-san taught me this chessboard way of thinking? The concept of examining the situation by flipping it over and thinking from the enemy's side. I get the feeling that I was so interested in this way of thinking at that time that I let it guide the way I thought about everything. By the way, Kyrie-san was Dad's coworker back then. I hadn't dreamed that the day would come when she would be added to our family. Didn't Kyrie-san tell me something? I get the feeling that she once said that, well, all this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things. It wasn't all powerful by any means. And in fact, was actually bad to rely on too much.
Chessboard thinking is my interpretation of something called game theory.
What? Game theory? What? Oh.
Which I read about in a book. It's a very interesting subject, so you should try tackling it when you get into college, Batlerkin.
I really want to try it. If I could study that and perfect my chessboard thinking, it'd be like I could read into any opponent's moves. That'd be really fun.
But you can't believe in it blindly. Game theory is a very deep and complicated subject. Chessboard thinking is just my interpretation that skims the surface of game theory. In order to thoroughly read your opponent's moves like you're imagining, you need to do a lot of study.
Hey, can somebody in the chat please draw Kyrie in like the MatPat PNG pose? You know the one.
Additionally, while chessboard theory is convenient and practical, it isn't perfect. It has many weak points despite its convenience.
Weak points?
Yes. Chessboard thinking is founded upon game theory, and game theory is essentially math when you boil it down. Do you know what the weak point of math is? It's noise.
In math, when you write 1 + 1 = 2, that equation will always be 1 + 1 = 2 no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there's absolutely no noise mixed in. But for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji are a good example. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by change over the ages. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. Because the rules of chess are fixed, when a pair of experts are discussing one particular position, it's possible that they could reach the same conclusion, whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible the discussion about that same position would have changed as well.
Precisely. Events in the worlds of humans are naturally full of noise. Aren't human emotions that way? Even if the exact same thing occurs more than once, there's no guarantee that humans will always act in a predictable fashion. The very fact that we're trying to read an opponent's actions by applying a mathematical theory to them means we must realize there are already some limits and weak points to our theory. To put it quick and easy, chessboard thinking is extremely weak against noise and fickleness, and even mistakes or incorrect knowledge.
That's right. Kyrie-san definitely said that. In the first place, chess is a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight with the same objective, namely victory. This is why it's possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It's possible to read an opponent because you can always suppose that they will advance with the best moves they can find. But what if the opponent is fickle or a little tired and makes a move that can hardly be called the best? Or maybe, what if the game actually has special rules? Only the enemy knows them and they can make use of something unknown to you. In fact, what if the opponent actually has some goal other than victory? Think from your enemy's perspective. That's the basis of chessboard thinking, which means that if you misunderstand your enemy, any and all answers that you draw from that process will be complete rubbish and of no use at all. Many times, I've thought that by using the chessboard thinking, I'd gotten a glimpse into the person behind these crimes. However, I don't know anything about the culprit. Am I just playing in a labyrinth of thought? If Kyrie-san were here at a time like this, she'd be able to notice something with her much, much sharper thinking ability. Jessica never warmed to the idea of moving into grandfather's study, but in the end, Aunt Natsuhi persisted, and we decided to move there. Everyone was already trapped by paranoia. Kumasawa-san had prepared dinner once already, but after the incident involving George Aniki's parents, the kitchen and the parlor had become temporarily devoid of people. Someone said that it might have been poisoned at that time. Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa-san had taken the trouble to make for us. The manner in which the first 6 had been killed was still unknown, but there was a possibility that it was poison. And indeed, by this method, even a single person would be able to carry out the murder of 6 fully grown adults. Furthermore, this idea made it seem like there was only a single culprit, who was also afraid of Aunt Natsuhi's rifle, and this was very good for our emotional stability. But the fatigue and hunger were even harsher than we had imagined. So on Kumasawa-san's suggestion, we all went together to the kitchen, and gathered some canned food, which would be hard to poison, and take it with us. All of Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us with at least a nice dinner on this savage day regrettably came to nothing. The food piled on the serving cart looked just a little sad. We all started climbing the stairs. Aunt Natsuhi led the group, warily staring into the darkness with both eyes and the barrel of the gun. When we arrived on the 3rd floor, just as Aunt Natsuhi had warned us beforehand, there was a mixture of a chemical smell and a sickly sweet aroma, a stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating into our heads. Yeah, this kind of stench probably would give you a headache if you were shut in with it for a whole night. I know it's a little late, but I find myself siding with Jessica against going into grandfather's study. This exceptionally magnificent door felt like the source of the stench. So this was the door to the forbidden study, which had turned away all who visited it. While Genji-san was unlocking the door, Maria was staring at the door and the doorknob with great interest.
What a door.
Looks old and strict, like it'd stop any jokes cold. Sure is a fitting door for grandfather's study.
It contains a really strong power to ward off any spiritual menace. Beatrice probably couldn't open this door.
Oh? What does that mean? Maria pointed at the doorknob. A scorpion crest. No, a design like a magic circle arranged around a scorpion was inscribed there. This design. That's right. Isn't this just like those key holder charms that Maria gave Jessica and me yesterday?
The 5th magic circle of Mars is a strong magic repellent. Additionally, this magic circle was very diligently constructed and is full of power. To beings of magic like Beatrice, this magic circle is actually quite troublesome.
Isn't that comforting? Are you saying that we can even escape the grip of Beatrice's evil hand in this room? Our little witch here sure is reliable.
Then how did Beatrice take grandfather out?
Just as Battler reasoned. Beatrice can't go inside, but she has magic and she also has familiars. Using those, she might have been able to force grandfather to leave the study.
I read that in a manga. There was a scene where the vampires were frightened of crosses so they couldn't get close, but their familiars were fine, so they made their familiars attack.
That scorpion keyholder-like charm I gave to you yesterday also had the 5th magic circle of Mars on it. The power dwelling within it was paltry, but it would have been enough to protect you until you left the island. Although it sounds like you lost it, right? Scorpion keyholder charm. The charm I gave you yesterday was something I got from Maria. I heard that it would repel magic if you put it on your doorknob, and at the time I thought maybe it would be better if you had it. Is that so? I thought it was an odd thing for you to be carrying around. Aunt Natsuhi put that on her doorknob? Yes. Last night, after hearing about it from Jessica, I hung it from the doorknob on the inside of my door. Then Aunt Natsuhi, you're really fortunate. If you did that, Beatrice probably couldn't even lay one finger on you yesterday. I think Beatrice must have been really annoyed.
Beatrice? Annoyed? Couldn't lay one finger? Natsuhi thought back on that eerie graffiti she had seen that morning, like someone had been tearing at the outside of her door with blood-soaked hands, and gasped in surprise. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice had tried to enter through the door to her very own room? But the magic-repelling charm had been hanging from the inside, so she couldn't break through the door. So she was annoyed, so she scratched at it. Quit it. Don't talk about that. Witches don't exist. The killer does. And that's a human, just like the rest of us. And if you need proof, why don't we dice her up and see if her blood is red? Damn it. Damn it. How could you do that to Kanon-kun? Click. Genji unlocked the door. The 8 entered Kinzo's study. Grandfather's study. I'd heard rumors about beforehand, so it didn't surprise me all that much. He'd done nothing more than fortify it thoroughly with his occult hobbies. If Grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pop idols, these walls might have been buried underneath idol posters. Even if I didn't understand it, I did realize that this room was an amalgamation of all the things he enjoyed. Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of his creepy medicine and the sweet stench that seemed to melt my head. Alternate timeline, Kinzo has the Sayaka Mizuno room. I hate that. Please do not put that visual into my head. The Sayaka Mizuno room already bothers me enough. When the door closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see. This is the auto lock that's activated whenever the door is closed. And there were only 2 keys which could open this door from the outside, both of which were in this room. In other words, this room had become a locked room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now the auto lock. This 4th door had been locked in the most magnificent fashion yet, constructing a locked room in a perfect form that none could argue with. Just to make absolutely sure that the room was secure, we checked all over for ways in or out. The windows were tightly locked. That should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking all over the walls. After all, there had been whispers that there might be a hidden door in this room, but we couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though we called it a study, it wasn't really a single room. It could be divided up into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet/bathroom section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see. This study does have enough in it to live in. Now I could understand how Grandfather could live his whole life in this room without ever leaving. It seemed that Grandfather wasn't in the habit of watching TV. There was no television in this room, nor even a radio. Until tomorrow morning, there would be nothing for us to do but pass the time listening to the sound of the rain. Dr. Nanjo gazed at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently the partly finished chess match he'd been playing with Grandfather until yesterday. The black and white pretty well cornered, and the black had the white pretty well cornered, and it looked like checkmate would be reached within a few moves, the end of the endgame. Even though checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and the end was never completed.
Kinzo-san, it seems we weren't able to see this match through after all. Dr. Nacho, I was Kinzo-san's friend for a long time, but I never knew about more than half of him. I believed that 2 Kinzos existed, a wise one, and one trapped by some madness. I never understood anything about him.
Especially when it came to Beatrice-sama. It would seem like his personality changed.
In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It wasn't massive like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room, and so much of his time, talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice to Grandfather in the first place? By now, you couldn't just explain her away by saying she was a story made by the parents to frighten children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we had brought in from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself or someone pretending to be her. Whether they were a witch or a human. The lady in this portrait was strongly related to the basis and background of these crimes. You couldn't talk about them without talking about her. People in the chat thirsting for Beatrice, so true. Oh yeah. Mom, you picked up a letter from the culprit in Auntie Ava's room, right? Yes. We still haven't opened it, have we? Let's open it and see. Natsuhi took out that Western-style envelope. Genji-san pulled the letter opener out of a drawer in the study desk and handed it to her. While watching her open it, George Aniki grimaced slightly. After all, it was a letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered. There was a good chance that its contents would say something unbearable to Aniki. It seemed that Aunt Natsuhi also realized that. So she glanced over the contents first without reading it aloud. 100% in no shame, I want a Beatrice portrait myself. I don't know if you guys know this or saw, because I've only shown it in my Silent Hill video so far, and that one didn't do quite as well as my other videos, unfortunately. But I have a Beatrice portrait hanging above my bed. I had it custom printed and put in a little frame that I owned. It's not as big as the one in the main hall in Umineko, obviously, but it's probably about as big as the one in Kinzo's office there. We were a little frightened that she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily.
What does it say?
There's one unpleasant sentence. It must be trying to provoke us. Natsui, after deciding that the contents could be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at it at the same time. Do I scream at it? No. No, she just watches over me as I sleep. It's probably why I have nightmares so often. Praise my name? The hell? So freaking smug.
It's probably Beatrice declaring herself the victor. Damn it.
I expect you were hoping for another weird magic circle to show up.
It wasn't a magic circle, but it was just as I expected it.
What could it mean? I wonder if she wants to tout her own existence.
That seems reasonable. With this letter, we now know the author of last night's letter is the culprit. I think the identical envelope is more significant than what is written here.
Without a doubt, this is the type of envelope and sealing wax that the master used.
Oh, I don't know what's going on anymore. This is the first time I've seen anything like this since I started working for the Ishiramiya family. If we're to believe the letter last night, then Beatrice claims to be Grandfather's oldest confidant. Grandfather often said the same thing in the past, right? I directed the question to Genji-san and Kumasawa-san, who nodded together. So the two of you knew more about this than anyone except Grandfather. Could you tell us? For a long time, I made a point of ignoring this topic. But now that it has come to this, I can no longer do so. Genji, tell us everything you know. Genji-san didn't answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge, or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been deified among the servants. He had probably been very close to Grandfather, too, and his occult hobbies. So there was a good chance he'd been indoctrinated with even weirder things, and had increasingly come to deify the witch. As Grandfather's most trusted servant, who had sworn loyalty to him, he might be the most influenced by the witch illusion that Grandfather had created. So there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could say it, but it would definitely cause a backlash, so it was better if he kept his mouth shut. And it wasn't like we would believe him anyway. Something along those lines. Only a short while ago, Maria had been more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly, and that had earned her a scuffle with Jessica. It was natural for Genji-san to keep his silence. Was she Father's mistress, perhaps? His mistress. That could be possible. For ordinary poor people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively from a moral perspective. It's also an unmaintainable financial situation. But that isn't the case for the very rich. It's possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real wife. We can't deny the possibility that Grandfather had another woman in his life besides Grandmother.
Maybe. When Grandmother was alive, it seems she strongly suspected it. That he was cheating on her. I'd always thought she was referring to the witch in Grandfather's head, but...
You're really gonna ask his boyfriend that? True.
This is getting really interesting.
Do we know who Kinzo's wife was? His wife is, like, mentioned here and there, but she doesn't ever, like, really become a prominently focused on character. She's more of a background element, because by this time she has also passed away. So, you know. Them's the breaks.
This is getting really interesting. You told me that. You told me, didn't you, Genji-san? You said Beatrice has been working for Grandfather since before the mansion was finished.
I've heard that the construction of the mansion was completed in 1952.
That would mean that this person called Beatrice had been in a relationship with Grandfather for over 30 years.
Could that mistress of 30 years ago, or maybe a relative or hidden child of that person, hold some kind of grudge and be planning revenge? I see. This is starting to sound just like your standard Western mansion mystery.
It's a filthy topic, but the easiest line of reasoning to accept. Well, Genji?
The master surely had feelings of deep love for her. There can be no mistake that he cared for her more than his late wife.
Who is this person called Beatrice? And what is she doing now?
I've heard that she passed away before the mansion was completed.
She's already dead?
Yes. The master mourned for her most grievously, and he devoted himself to the art of black magic as a means to revive Beatrice-sama. The master loved Beatrice-sama from the bottom of his heart. It was that madness which drove him to do all you see here.
As Genji-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at this room filled with the signs of Grandfather's madness. We were all at a loss for words. Before this, his black magic hobby was nothing other than creepy, and we'd found it impossible to understand what drove him to devote himself to it. Nobody had tried to understand Kinzo, dismissing him as an eccentric who had restored the Yoshirimiya family amidst his madness. All that had been on Grandfather's mind was the loss of the woman he loved, and the sorrow of being unable to give up on her. Just a few moments ago, this room had seemed creepy, but in that instant, everything about it started making sense. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. All just because he wanted to revive once more the visage of a single woman who had left this world 30 long years ago.
Do we plan on finishing episode 1 today?
Yes.
The master only told me about Beatrice-sama's story once, when he was very drunk. Although I had forgotten the details, it was a deep, deep love, enough to make a woman like me jealous.
When Kinzo-san succeeded the headship of the Yoshirimiya family, his marriage to his late wife was decided by the few surviving elders of the family. So he married a woman that would benefit the Yoshirimiya family. Because he was forced to? That's correct. Kinzo-san was installed as the head who would revive the family and had to bear all of that heavy responsibility. I do not pretend to know the details of when or where Kinzo-san first met Beatrice.
It'd be rude to say any more than that. That was when Grandfather truly fell in love for the first time. How deep that affection must have been. It was easy to tell just by looking around us. This room was covered with piles upon piles of things having to do with black magic. And Grandfather had spent day after long day shut in here, immersed in his research, and isolated from the outside world, never taking a single day off. You couldn't help but realize how deep Grandfather's love for Beatrice was.
I had it all wrong, Genji-san.
What might that be?
I've always thought that maybe you servants believed blindly in the witch because you were influenced by Grandfather's creepy black magic hobby. But that's not how it was.
Perhaps they had been acting as though at least Beatrice's soul had been restored, and existed inside this mansion, in order to soothe Grandfather's heart. With closed eyes, and an expression as though he's remembering something from the distant past, Genji maintained his silence. He probably felt that to confess that would be to betray his one and only master in the most serious way. even though that person was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch, and she's in the mansion even now. This was his mantra, what he had believed, what he had made others believe. And Genji would take that with him to his grave. This might be the last service he could offer his master. The legend of the witch, the mysterious tale of Rokenjima that was still whispered of amongst the servants, its true nature was a sad lie. No, an act of kindness towards grandfather, who had lost the person he loved above all else.
I remember denying the witch's existence in front of Father on many occasions, on multiple occasions. Now I finally understand how much that must have wounded him.
Right now, I can understand very well. If I thought I could revive Shannon using black magic, I'd immediately become the next owner of this room and start researching. Aniki.
Another strand of tears dropped from George's eyes. Maybe it was infectious. Tears rose to Jessica's eyes too, and she sniffled.
Beatrice told me. Very soon she'll be able to revive. We'll be able to meet up.
And very soon, the door to the Golden Land will be opened. In that promised land that glitters gold, she'll resurrect all the dead people's souls and revive the love they possessed as well. And I will sleep in a world of peacefulness forevermore. Did she say that? The Beatrice who gave you that letter?
You don't believe, do you?
If only grandfather were here. I'm sure he'd be happy. I'm sure he'd be jumping for joy now that Beatrice is about to be revived. In that case, I'll believe. If spending half of his life on research is what brought life back to grandfather, and if believing the soul of the woman he loved who had been resurrected is what enabled him to live to a ripe old age, I'll believe too.
Butler.
When love for a single woman is persistent over time, it's shared by those around you and becomes the truth. Maybe you could say they're just being considerate, but right here, right now, I'd like to call that magic.
It isn't consideration. It really is magic. She's a witch. It looks like nobody can see Beatrice after all.
Some time passed. As we listened to the sound of the rain, we considered what kind of love and madness must have possessed the owner of this room as he spent half of his life here.
If you ask me as a woman, then while I'd like to understand Father's feelings of true love, it does leave Mother in an awkward position.
I agree. Cheating's cheating. No way to make it pretty. That's also true. Poor grandmother.
So, is there any story about a child between Beatrice and grandfather?
Oh, why does Natsuhi have a gun? She got one of Kinzo's guns earlier for self-defense to basically try to protect people if another murder were to occur while they were all around. Also, yes, Heartwolf is on the pulse there. Japan overall, well, they're getting better about it, but definitely at the time, especially, they had very poor mental health and neurodivergency understanding. So seeing Maria here in a VN from the late 2000s is truly amazing. Yep. To reiterate this information for people who haven't been here before, who didn't hear me say it in the previous streams, Ryukishi07, the guy who wrote both Higurashi and Umineko, was a social worker before he started writing visual novels. So he worked with many people in precarious mental health situations, mostly abused children. So when he writes about those topics, they are incredibly nuanced and almost uncomfortably well depicted. If you ever like find yourself thinking during scenes like that, like, wow, you know, bro's actually kind of spitting, that's for a reason. It's because, you know, he knows his shit. Is an Umineko late 2000s? Umineko was like, I think episode 1 came out in like 2007? 2007 or 8? Something like that, I want to say. It was really soon after the Higurashi anime ended, so.
The key word Beatrice has been hidden in every corner of this case. so it's natural to suspect any relative of Beatrice.
No, I have not heard of anything like that. If there had been one, I'm sure he would have given them all of his affection in memory of his beloved.
Yeah, August 2007, Kamiket72. Yep.
Since that didn't happen, and he immersed himself in black magic, maybe we should assume that there was no such child.
Come to think of it, this reminds me of a rumor I heard. You know it, right? You know that story about how grandfather heavily supported a welfare institute called the Gospel House? Enough of that. That's nothing more than slander which would desecrate father.
Tell us, Natsuki. Don't you agree that we shouldn't hide things from each other?
It's a worthless story. Father heavily supported that institute and opened up servant employment positions for them within this house as a part of their social studies. Some foolish people started spreading rumors that Father had foul motivations. That's all. At one point, there was a rumor he was collecting sacrifices for his black magic. And since he was actually doing weird experiments and rituals in this room all the time, I half believed it myself.
And who are these servants who came from the Gospel House?
There are several, but during the family conference, only Shannon and Canon were scheduled to be here.
To resurrect Beatrice, it summoned servants from a welfare institute. As sacrifices?
After all, everyone the grandfather selected as a servant was young, always about the same age as Shannon or Canon-kun. I was sure the grandfather had some weird inclinations. Jessica, control your words.
When Anatsuhi scolded her, the atmosphere instantly went sour and everyone felt quiet. However, something was tugging at the back of my mind. Sacrifices. Sacrifices. Sacrifices brought over from the Gospel House. What is it? Freaky words like sacrifices don't pop up often. Yet I've seen or heard that word somewhere recently. Some part of my memory is tugging at me. Come on, Beatrice. What do you know? I had arrived in front of the portrait of Beatrice. It wasn't as vast as the one in the entrance hall, but that portrait, which he must have drawn by some famous painter, was still just as intimidating in this smaller size. Below it, just like in the entrance hall, was the epitaph said to point out the place where the gold was hidden. Sacrifices.
What the hell? Battler? You're creeping me out.
Sacrifice. The 6. Both of my eyes opened as wide as plates. Right there, everything had been predicted since the very beginning. Everyone crowded around, and the same expression of terror filled every face. Yes, it was written in the epitaph. On the first twilight, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key. There's no doubt. 6 people died in the beginning. And even on the shutter where the magic circle was drawn, no, where the Hebrew was written, it mentioned the offering of sacrifices.
Oh, I've been saying that from the beginning.
That's right, Maria had said it at the very beginning. Right after we found the 6 bodies, when Maria was in the parlor watching TV, she had said it.
Oh, killer's not human. Just the sacrifices chosen by the key.
This has nothing to do with the location of the hidden gold. It's black magic or something. The instructions for a resurrection ritual. If I remember right, this epitaph requires a large number of deaths.
It sure does. Even reading through it quickly, they'd be 6 plus 2 plus 5. 13 people who have to die.
How many people are normally on this island?
It varies depending on the shifts for the servants, but there's father, my husband, me, and Jessica. And 2 or 3 servants. Today and yesterday, there were 5 of them, but there aren't normally that many.
To everybody saying, like, oh, they're only just now realizing this, to be fair, this epitaph has been up for, I think they said, about 2 years at this point. And also, like, most of the people here at the mansion either only come here, like, once a year, or they live there all the time, and they probably just don't think about it because they already think Kinzo is a weirdo, so they look at this weird epitaph and they're like, yeah, who knows what Grampy's waffling about.
means that normally, there wouldn't be enough sacrifices to carry out this ritual. No, wait. There's that rumor the grandfather was collecting servants from the gospel house to be used as sacrifices in some creepy ritual.
So what? He increased the number of servants to increase the number of sacrifices, and waited for the annual family conference when even more people would gather? Isn't now the only time of year that this ritual could be held?
When Jessica screamed this, Maria broke out in that creepy laugh, looking truly pleased.
Aren't there some people who make bets to test their fate?
Like throwing a sandal and saying that if it lands right side up, tomorrow will be sunny. Or saying that tomorrow will be a good day if a coin lands on heads. There are many little superstitions like that. If you're fed up at how nothing is going right for you and you happen to roll some dice and get 3 6s, it would probably make you want to believe that it's a sign of some miracle. When flipping a sandal, you have at worst a 50% chance. Even if you get it right side up, it's not worth much. But if you carelessly roll 3 dice and they all come up 6, you might think that's a small miracle.
Sorcery works the same way. You keep on praying earnestly, hoping for that impossibly unlikely outcome. Then, when that impossible result shows itself, the feelings from all those stored up prayers are made incarnate through magic. The sorcery that Grandfather was trying to perform was probably like that. The key randomly selected sacrifices in a lottery. So to reduce the chance that he himself was selected, he chose the day with the greatest number of people on the island to carry out the ritual.
How ridiculous. Are you saying that all of these incidents were part of the process of some questionable magic ritual?
Natsuhi yelled. She couldn't stop thinking fearfully about how she might have been protected just because of that scorpion charm. If I hadn't received that charm from Jessica and hung it from my doorknob, would I have been killed? Been one of those 6? And the strangest part is, even though I hung the charm from the inside of my door, they couldn't get through the door. The killer had noticed the charm from outside the door and had given up trying to open the door. A human couldn't have perceived that. The charm meant to stop someone that was not human had done just that. Impossible. Impossible. Impossible.
However, Natsui-san, look, the epitaph traces the events that followed.
On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. Could this be talking about Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama?
Painful as it may be, we must reach that conclusion. And after the culprit killed them, they left the words from the 3rd twilight in a letter there.
That's right. After carrying out the 2nd twilight, they left the 3rd twilight in that place. The 3rd twilight is just like Aunt Natsuhi had read. On the 3rd twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. Now I read it. It just keeps going on, doesn't it? On the 4th twilight, gouge the head and kill. Gouge the head and kill. George Aniki's parents were killed with the demon's ice picks gouged into their heads. But if that counted as the 2nd twilight, someone else must be gouged in the head. That's Grandfather. He hadn't been burned in the incinerator. He had been burned in the incinerator, and our eyes were so drawn to that part that we didn't notice. But Grandfather's forehead... No, his head had been gouged.
Grandfather is the victim of the 4th twilight? Then Kanon-kun...
On the 5th twilight, gouged the chest and kill. We thought that Kanon-kun's case was an unexpected encounter with the culprit, but that's wrong. They had been planning on luring someone out alone and driving something through their chest from the beginning.
If the culprit had followed the epitaph this far, does that mean that 3 people still have to die?
On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill.
Yes, you could read it that way.
Well, I wonder about that. After those 3 die, it reaches the 9th twilight. Take a look. On the 9th twilight, the witch revives, and none shall be left alive.
We're all going to be killed by Beatrice.
I don't get it. Doesn't that mean that everyone will die no matter how many people there are? What was Grandfather's goal? Doesn't this mean that this ritual would kill Grandfather himself no matter what?
It doesn't matter that no one's left alive. On the 10th twilight, we finally arrive at the Golden Land.
On the 10th twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold. The witch shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures.
Grandfather wasn't afraid of something like death. Look at the 2nd and 3rd of the 4 treasures.
One resurrects all of the dead people's souls.
One even revives all the love they possessed. So grandfather believed that he would eventually be revived, even if he dies partway through this ritual.
Ridiculous. That's insane. When you die, it's over, right? The dead don't come back to life. That's a miracle that humanity's been chasing after for thousands of years and still hasn't been accomplished. So it's gotta be something like this, right? Something like you can revive and meet them in the world after death?
If what you say is right, would that mean grandfather, whose remaining life is slim and who's insane because of love?
I hate it whenever the dreaded self-inflicted death word comes up because YouTube gets so antsy about you saying it. And they're like, oh, you said that word? Instantly demonetized. How do I approach this? Because I don't want it to be goofy. This is kind of a serious moment. You know what? You know, this time I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna see what happens. If I get demonetized on this one stream, then whatever. Just let's just try to make up for it with donations or something.
Grandfather, whose remaining life is slim and who is insane because of love, is committing suicide. No, a massive forced group suicide?
Genji, can that possibility be considered?
I do not know. The Master is a man who sometimes has the wisdom to see 1,000 years into the future. However, there are times when that appears to be nothing more than madness to commoners such as myself.
What does that mean, yes? What do you say, Kumasawa-san?
I don't know anything. No, you can be sure of that. Do you think I would be on this island today if I did know? I would have faked an illness or done whatever it took to get the day off. Goodness gracious, yes!
What about your opinion, Dr. Nanjo? You've been grandfather's friend for many years.
I feel the same as Genji-san. Kinzo-san was a man who far surpassed ordinary people. I can talk. I'm capable of it. I've even felt sort of an inhuman power from him at times. Not even I understand what Kinzo-san was thinking when he wrote that epitaph.
All we can say is that even if the person who created this outline was father, the one carrying it out is a different person.
That's right. At the very least, there's another culprit who attacked grandfather in Kanokun. Furthermore, that person is still continuing the crimes just as the epitaph says. The letter in the beginning, that we didn't think too deeply about. What was it that was written there? We thought back to the recitation of this letter last night. Beatrice had promised something inside the letter. She had proclaimed that in accordance with her contract with Kinzo, she would collect everything of the Ishirimiya family as interest. But then, she had also revealed this special clause. If someone discovered the location of the gold grandfather had hidden, that right would be lost. At that time, the letter had been read. Grandfather was still alive. But at that time, it had already been sealed with wax by the head's ring, which meant that grandfather had handed the ring over to Beatrice while he was still alive. If you think about that straightforwardly, we should probably take that to mean that Beatrice is carrying out that strange contract, and grandfather is securing her that right. Simply put, it was the same as saying that grandfather knew of and approved of the contents of the letter. In other words, it's as though it was a joint message from Beatrice and grandfather, telling us that Beatrice will start collecting interest if we don't solve the riddle. In short, grandfather and Beatrice were telling us to solve the epitaph's riddle, and if we couldn't, they were saying they would kill us all, following the procedure in the epitaph. What meaning is there to that? What do they want? I don't have any clue what it means.
Look, another letter from Beatrice.
Huh? What did you say? Maria was pointing at the top of the table where the canned food that everyone had been eating just now still lay. A Western-style envelope was sitting there. But so what?
What?
Natsuhi let out a hysterical cry, looking between her own hand and the table. because the envelope that she had just opened was still grasped in her hand. And despite that, there's an envelope on the table?
What is this? What's going on? Maria! Where did that envelope come from?
Thank you for the $5. Why is your name getting cut off in the... hold on, let me... Cat Thulu, thank you so much for the $5.
Just now, I looked and it was lying there. Oh.
I don't know anything. Anything! This isn't funny. There's only 8 of us here. There's no way some 9th person snuck in. There wasn't enough time during the few seconds that we gathered around the portrait, right? Get back! All of you! Back against the wall!
Aunt Natsuhi was pointing the rifle at Genji and the others, bellowing at them. Genji-san was overpowered, his face looking like he didn't have a clue what was going on. Of course, I felt the same, but a few moments late, I reached the same conclusion that Aunt Natsuhi had. Until just a few seconds ago, there was no letter like this on the table, and nobody had entered this room. That means someone among us had placed it there during the few seconds when everyone was looking away, preoccupied with the portrait.
Bather-kun, open that envelope and read what's inside. Sure.
I picked up the envelope. It was still sealed with wax. Even without disturbing its contents, I realized this was an unopened envelope. An unknown envelope. Without relying on a letter opener, I violently tore it open and pulled out the letter inside. The contents were as follows.
Were you enjoying the riddle, Kenzo-sama's epitaph? As you are all probably aware, you have very little time remaining. Please abandon any naive hopes of escaping after the storm passes. This game can only end with my victory or yours. When time runs out, I will win by default. There will be no ties. Make sure you do not misunderstand your current situation.
That's what it says.
It isn't clear who put this letter there. However, I have been able to narrow down the list of suspects.
It's all of you! Madam, that's just too horrible.
Just before I moved towards the portrait, I set a can of food down there.
At that time, there definitely wasn't anything as strange as this letter there. And at that time, Jessica, George-kun, and Butler-kun were already in front of the portrait. And they didn't leave the spot in front of the portrait until the letter appeared. So the person who set that letter down is one of you 4. Beatrice is one of you!
Oh, we aren't Beatrice. Beatrice exists.
Silence! I don't know whether I should suspect one of you or all of you. But without a doubt, at least one of you is one among you is the culprit. That's right. There can't be a 19th person. There's no way witches exist. Even when Kanon-kun was killed. Yeah, that could be explained if Kumasawa-san was the one who did it. The truth is that Kumasawa-san entered the boiler room with Kanon-kun and killed him. And then she lied, saying that she had already fallen when she got there. You're making a mistake, milady. Why would I do something like that?
I don't have the slightest idea how my parents were killed in that locked room. But when they were killed, everyone except for the servants had an alibi. The only ones who didn't were the servants. But is it really correct to suspect them? Well, now that you mention it, they do have no alibi for any of the cases, but...
Should we really be so quick to make that judgment? But this time, in this room, in this place, in this moment, in this minimally small bit of space and time, it's obvious. Only one of the 4 of them could have sent that letter there in our blind spot. We can't tell who put it there, but it's obvious that one of the 4 did it.
Natsuhi-san, please, calm yourself. A lot has happened today. I understand the condition your heart is in right now.
Dr. Nanjo, it truly pains me to call you suspicious. However, as father's personal doctor, and as his closest friend, you have been by his side for many years. You might know about Beatrice as well. Could you be hiding some kind of old personal connection of his?
Of course not. Calm yourself.
It was pitiful to watch Dr. Nanjo frantically pleading his innocence. It was probably a normal reaction that anyone would give if they were suspected. Kumasawa was the same. Since Jessica had started suspecting her in the murder of Kanon, she was now totally flustered. That was why Genji's still calm appearance looked so bold. Aunt Natsuhi pointed the barrel of the gun.
Genji, you are father's #1 subordinate.
Was Beatrice a fantasy you showed to Father with you as the performer?
If by suspecting me, you recognize me as the Master's greatest servant, then it is of great honor to me, regardless of the circumstances. However, I'm not the one who put the letter there.
Do you expect me to just accept that? You must be the ringleader. Maybe Kumasawa and Dr. Nanjo are your accomplices. And you too, Maria-chan.
Not content to doubt just the adults, Aunt Natsuhi pointed the gun relentlessly at Maria too. But Maria acted as though nothing had happened. Or maybe she thought she would be fine if she was shot.
Maria-chan, by this point we can no longer remove someone from suspicion just because they are young. So for the last time, let me ask you the question that everyone's brought to you since last night.
Yesterday, who was the Beatrice that handed you the letter?
Oh,
Maria, don't try to fool us. Make it clear. Who the hell gave you that letter?
how many times do I have to tell you? It's Beatrice, the 1,000-year-old Golden Witch. If you want to know what she looks like, just turn around. See? She's right there. Beatrice is.
You think this is a game, you little bitch?
Stop it, Jessica. Maria too. Don't you understand the situation? What are you hoping to gain by saying stuff like that? Stop stirring each other up pointlessly!
I don't understand. Who do you want to be the culprit? You only believe in Beatrice when you don't want to doubt one of your own. And when you're trying to settle a grudge because someone who's close to you has been killed, only then do you want to believe in a human culprit who you can attack with violence and deny Beatrice. That's why you can't see her. Beatrice exists. You all can't see her.
Silence! I don't want to label you as the culprit, but there is no longer any doubt that you enjoy making the situation unpleasant, serving the interests of the enemy.
Then what will you do? Shoot me? I don't mind. Very soon, the door to the Golden Land will be opened. Then all the dead will be resurrected. Right now, death is nothing to be afraid of.
Mom, she really is suspicious. We can't stay with her.
But Natsuhi, please, calm down. There's no reason to shoot Maria-chan. Please remain composed. The letter was meant to provoke us, but it's nothing to be afraid of. Even the culprit is scared. Scared of tomorrow. Scared of the police. Right now, this island is free from the reach of the law, but that's only because it's isolated by the typhoon. Once the typhoon passes, the law will return. So you mustn't shoot.
How can you stay so calm, George Nissan? One of these four is the culprit! No, maybe all four of them are working together. How can you stay so calm when one of these four might be the culprit who killed your parents?
Even I have the desire to find the culprit and kill them. But that would be simple barbarism. I'll leave the judgment of crimes to the law. So no matter how suspicious they are, you mustn't pull that trigger. I feel the same as George Aniki. Natsuhi, get a hold of yourself for a second. Anyway, it'd be bad to shoot. In times like these, I hear you should tilt your head back and say, "Stay cool," 3 times.
Let me make this clear. Witches don't exist. Not on Okenjima. Not in the Yoshiramiya mansion.
I declare it as Yoshiramiya Natsuhi, representative of the Yoshiramiya family. There is no witch here. I won't accept Beatrice. No matter what you're planning, I won't let you lay one finger on my daughter or the rest of them. That's my duty as a mother and a representative to the family.
Those words were the final words of farewell that settled everything. To protect her daughter, Aunt Natsuhi would regard any suspicious person as an enemy. The only reason George Aniki and I were standing on this side was because by coincidence we had a clear alibi regarding the letter. If I hadn't approached the portrait, I too may have been on the other end of that gun barrel, treated like a criminal. But even though part of me thought that, part of me was thinking that chasing all of the suspicious people from this room would finally guarantee our safety. Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Dr. Nanjo, all of them were on grandfather's side. You could even say that Maria was on grandfather's side since she had a blind belief in Beatrice. That's right, they're all suspicious. But is this really alright? Is it really alright for us to fight back against the lawlessness of the witch by throwing out all of the suspicious ones without due process? Natsui didn't tell them to leave with her own words, but with wordless pressure, she was inducing them to say that themselves. So if Dr. Nanjo hadn't said those words, this cold silence would surely have continued forever.
Calm yourself, Natsui-san. But I understand your feelings well. I myself feel like there's something wrong with my head after all of these strange, repeated incidents. So I understand well why you want to suspect us.
If you really have nothing to do with this, I would think that what I am doing is beyond rude. However, please understand. Just this once.
I understand. Let's leave the room. What do you say, Genji-san? Shall we return to the parlor and continue our chess game? If that's what you wish, by all means.
I don't want to. I mean, that means we'll all have to leave this room knowing that the wolf is among us. I don't want to, madam. Please forgive me.
What Kumasawa-san was trying to say made total sense. If she was innocent, then she was being ejected into dangerous territory along with the culprit. In the current situation, pressing her to leave this room along with the suspects was almost exactly the same as letting her get killed. However, Kumasawa-san really was suspicious just for being the first one to discover that Kanon-kun had been murdered. At that time, everyone except Kumasawa-san had an alibi. As long as the use of some trick or the existence of some 19th person could not be established, Kumasawa-san was one of the most likely suspects by far. I didn't want to believe it. However, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest of us were in such a difficult situation that we couldn't help doubting any of them, Kumasawa-san included. So we didn't say anything to stop Aunt Natsuhi from trying to oppressively chase them from the room. We had all stopped her from shooting, but when it came to exiling them from the room, we were passively agreeing. Maria spoke to the still fretful Kumasawa-san.
You'll be all right. Beatrice's kind to those who respect her. You believe that Beatrice exists. So I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm going to watch TV in the parlor. Let's watch it together. This place has no TV and it's boring.
It looked like Kumasawa found Maria's roguish laugh very frightening. However, the three other people had agreed to leave the room. Kumasawa couldn't fight the flow and had to agree, crying as she left the room.
Well then, Natsui-san, I shall leave you for tonight. Let us meet again tomorrow.
Yes. Please understand. At least for tonight. When the police come, I promise to apologize to you all for my rudeness. You may play chess, but do it in a safe place if you can. Genji, I leave it to you.
Certainly.
Oh, it can't be helped, can it? They always say the most frightening bears are those with their cubs. Genji, Kumasawa, my sincere apologies. Let us meet again tomorrow. Maria-chan, too. Please forgive your cold aunt.
I forgive.
Madam, the keys to this room. I'll hand over both to you.
Genji-san pulled the 2 golden keys from his pocket and handed them to Aunt Natsuhi.
And I will also hand over my bundle of keys to the inside of the mansion.
He took out a bundle of about 10 keys of various shapes and handed it over. To the servants, those keys were probably the proof of their position. Being placed in charge of those keys meant that they were trusted, relied upon. Being forced to return them meant that they had lost that trust. Thinking about it this way, there could have been no greater humiliation for Genji-san, who had served here for all these years. However, his usual indifferent expression remained on his face.
Genji, I had planned that, after Father passed away, I would reward you for your many years of hard work and allow you to retire. And yet, I'm treating you like this. It makes me feel ashamed from the bottom of my heart.
I have already received the Master's favor. Everything I have done until today has been in repayment for that. Please, do not worry over it. Well then, shall we, everyone? Good night to you all.
Night-night. Battler 2, night-night.
Maria. Wait a sec. Guilt made me call Maria back. I groped around in my pocket and took out the scorpion key holder. This repels magic, right? Keep it on you.
Huh? Didn't you say you dropped it?
Back then, I was kinda pissed off, and I was just bluffing that I'd lost it. There's no way I'd lose your precious charm. Maria silently took the charm. I was unable to say anything after that.
Well then, everyone, good night to you.
Unable to respond, we watched them leave, our expressions completely tired out. And until the door closed and we heard the auto lock, we were unable to even draw our next breath. Then, when I was finally allowed to take that breath, I noticed that Beatrice's letter, which I had been gripping the whole time and which was soaked with my sweat, actually had 2 sheets. The paper had been so tightly stuck together, I had mistakenly thought that there was only one. There was nothing written on the second sheet. The thing drawn here was a magic circle with red ink like blood. Just like how every magic circle up until then had been different, this magic circle was one that I had never laid eyes on. Inside the circle, a large triangle and a small triangle were fit together in a simple design. But just as before, there was writing in Hebrew, and it seemed clear that it held some kind of meaning. I wanted to know what that could be, but we had just chased Maria, the only person who could understand the meaning of magic circles, out of the room. I thought of the magic circles as a second set of messages from Beatrice. What does this one mean? Damn it. We've chased out all the suspicious people. Now all we have to do is stay barricaded here until morning, and then everything will be over? Once the typhoon has passed, when the seagulls cry, will everything be resolved? But the letter that had unexpectedly appeared in the study had rejected that naivete. It had made it very clear that if time ran out, it would mean victory for the witch. When time runs out, is the witch planning to take on the offensive? Is she finally planning to display some fearful magical power? Maybe something that could have been used to kill 6 adults at once? Wait, when is time supposed to run out? I don't know anything.
No, we should finally be safe. Finally. Definitely.
Even as she said that, Aunt Natsui couldn't stop gripping that rifle. There was no release in the tension of her expression. Of course, none of us felt like breathing a sigh of relief yet either. At least, not until we could hear the cries of the seagulls once more.
This chapter is The Golden Witch. Gee, I wonder what's gonna happen.
After we chased them out, nobody said another word. We had exiled all of the suspicious ones. Even though we had known that there might be some innocents among them, we had exiled them all the same. We had chased them out of this paradise, where people didn't have to doubt each other. However, our motive for chasing them out had been suspicion of our fellow man, the worst kind of crime for a human. If we'd been able to accept the existence of a 19th person, of the witch, then we might still be talking face to face, trusting in each other. In that instant, we had agreed to chase out all of the suspicious people, but had that been the right thing to do?
Sorry, just looking at the chat real quick. See you later, Larif.
During this endless silence, we could do nothing but be quietly tormented by that sin. Aunt Natsuhi was facing the door, seated all the way back in her sofa, not letting go of her rifle for even an instant. She would probably spend the night staring at the door without a wink of sleep. George Aniki was gazing through a gap in the closed curtains by the window, looking down at the courtyard and the mansion that surrounded it. Whether he was checking to see if any suspicious shadows would become visible through the window, or whether he was engaged in some deep internal conversation, I couldn't tell. Jessica was sitting at an angle on the sofa next to Aunt Natsuhi's with a dead expression on her face. And every once in a while, as though she just remembered something, she would take out the inhaler that she had used during her asthma attack and stick it in her mouth. I just heard it from Aniki, but apparently Jessica liked Kenon-kun. It seems that it was such a vague thing that she hadn't realized it herself. You know, it's the kind of thing that other people tend to spot before the person in question realizes it. In that case, she might have first learned of her feelings when the person she liked died. It was truly pitiful and sad. Come to think of it, Kenon-kun had been the one to hand her that inhaler. Maybe she was remembering that. As for me, I was fishing around Grandfather's study, thinking I'd research the meaning of the magic circle on the second sheet of the letter. Even though we were shut up here in a defensive position, my rebellious nature made me want to keep up the offense, find some key to all of this. We have plenty of time until tomorrow morning comes anyway. No matter what I do with that time, no one can find fault with it. No one else showed that much interest in this magic circle. Its meaning was unknown, and once we understood it, we were sure to find some message that would cause us unnecessary anguish. I also agreed about this. However, I still couldn't let it go, so I killed time pretending to research it.
You sure are enthusiastic. Did you find anything that might serve as a hint?
Not a thing. The first task is even finding a book written in Japanese. Just how many languages could Grandfather read? He's incredible.
Aren't you tired, Batherkin? You should take a rest while someone else is staying awake for you. Natsuhi may be saying that she'll stay vigilant all night, but there's no way her body can handle all of that. We should take turns sleeping.
Then you sleep first, Aniki. I'm gonna keep on with my little research until the drowsiness hits.
That magic circle?
Pretty much. We've got plenty of time to kill. I thought it'd be interesting to find out what kind of message the great Beatrice-sama put in it.
I wouldn't. Keep that up and you'll get possessed by something weird.
Relax. I've been certified by Maria. She said I'm utterly lacking any spiritual talent.
Were we too cruel to Maria? Jessica, you mustn't think that now. But Mom, if Maria wasn't involved and the killer's someone totally different, they're obviously gonna go for the easy targets. If she's killed because of this, then we've just let her die.
A gloomy silence settled once again. It looked like Jessica regretted that she'd let her emotions take hold of her and snapped at Maria. She was always like that. Always acted tough, went too far, and regretted it later.
I understand how you feel, but Maria was in close contact with the culprit. And what's worse, she seemed to be taking their side with an endless series of mystifying statements. I'm relieved that we chased her out.
That's pretty harsh on Natsuhi. Couldn't it have just been the nonsense of a 9-year-old girl? Even I thought I was being brazen saying that. I myself had thought Maria was creepy on several occasions today and had doubted her true nature. And when Maria had been chased out of this room, I couldn't deny that I'd felt some relief.
If that's the case, then tomorrow I'll apologize for what I did. I will take full responsibility for chasing them out of this room. This isn't something that the rest of you have to worry about.
I could feel a tragic determination in Natsuhi's words. To protect her own daughter, she would resolutely chase out the suspicious ones. And if as a result she had left to die those people who had the misfortune to be suspected, then so be it. So she was prepared to take full responsibility. Why does Maria have to keep saying stuff like that? She's bringing about her own ruin.
I think that the reason Maria-chan adores witches and magic so much might be because of Auntie Rosa.
Because of Auntie Rosa? What does she have to do with this?
I think you must have realized it too, Batherkin. Maria-chan's real father ran off somewhere a long time ago. Although Auntie's trying to cover it up by saying he's on a foreign business trip.
Talking about Rosa-san's family has become kind of taboo in the Ishiramiya family.
I think Auntie even thought about remarrying. But I also believe Maria-chan may have become her shackles and made that quite difficult. After all, she sometimes got incredibly emotional and took it all out on Maria-chan.
I agree with you there. It looked like Auntie Rosa was trying hard to like Maria, which means that she didn't really like her. I'll bet she had some strong thoughts about Maria standing in the way of her getting remarried.
I think that the emotional rejection from her mother must have left some deep scars on her young heart. So when she learned about this occult hobby from somewhere, she immersed herself in it so she could fill the holes in her heart. Did you know? To Maria-chan, the image of a witch isn't negative at all. Remember yesterday at the beach when she showed us her notebook?
Yeah. It was full of those fun-looking scribbles. Yesterday, when we had doubted the witch down by the beach, Maria had gotten all riled up and started explaining about witches. And not one of the pages had shown a picture of an ugly witch. They were all brightly colored, beautiful, cute witches who looked like they were having fun. There was absolutely nothing sinister about them, like a boy might have imagined. They were beings adorned with beautiful dresses who could grant anyone's dreams with their mysterious magic and who made everyone happy. The sorrow of not being loved by her mother. Had Maria sought salvation from the witches as beings who could save her from that sorrow and make her happy? Someday a witch would come, and using her wonderful magic would bring Maria happiness. Even though she believed that, as she grew older she had to face reality as her fleeting dreams were sliced to ribbons one by one. If in front of a girl like that, something claiming to be the Witch of Rokenjima appeared, and whispered that she would take Maria to the Golden Land where Maria could be happy.
I think it's time I confessed what's in my heart. Maybe throwing out Maria-chan, no, Genji-san and the rest, too, was probably the wrong thing to do.
I do feel guilty. Since Jessica had been the one to face them and slam them with words of rejection, her conscience must be tormenting her a lot right now. Then how do you all explain that letter? No one could have said it there except for the 4 people standing behind me. I was able to see that quite clearly with my own eyes. If those 4 are innocent, how was that letter placed there in a locked room with 8 people in it?
That's just it. When you put it that way, those 4 really do seem suspicious. But that's no goddamn good. Yeah, it's no goddamn good at all. No good? What is?
Right. It might not be worth anything anymore, but let me flip over the chessboard again. What I mean is that if one of those 4 really is the culprit, it makes no sense. That's right. Wasn't setting that letter openly on the table at the same time as... on the table the same as confessing that one of them was the culprit? You're right, that makes no sense. If you were gonna do that, you'd put it, like, in the crack of the door to make it look like someone had slipped it in from the outside. Yeah, they must have known they'd be suspected if they didn't make it look like the culprit was outside the room.
Yeah, that's it exactly. If the culprit was one of those 4, setting that letter right in the middle of the table would both be risky and meaningless. But putting aside whatever trick they used to set it there, if we assume the culprit is someone other than those 4, in other words, someone who was outside the room, then they had a lot to gain from that letter. Oh, whoops.
Stop that, Butlerkin. At this point, that issue is insignificant.
Natsuhi quickly guessed at what I was getting at. No, maybe she had thought of it long before I had and had simply held her tongue. If the culprit was outside the room, then once we shut ourselves up in the locked room where the culprit couldn't touch us, it was all over for them. That's right. It's the same as the theory I proposed about how Grandfather disappeared from this room, isn't it? That theory that Grandfather left the room of his own accord. If the culprit used some tactic to lure him out, and Grandfather left of his own accord, then... Come to think of it, even Maria had said it, when we found the scorpion magic circle on the doorknob to the study. Beatrice couldn't get through this door, but she might have been able to induce someone to leave of their own accord.
In that case, that would mean we fell for the culprit's trap completely. And sent out new potential sacrifices. Genji and the rest aren't fools. If they desired to protect themselves, they would quickly think of the next safest place after this room. They're surely hiding themselves there.
Natsuhi hadn't answered the question. She herself realized that if the culprit wasn't in that group, that letter could easily have been a trap. However, it wasn't worth the risk of calling back the people she had once thrown out. To Aunt Natsuhi right now, her greatest and only duty was to protect the children. And to that end, she was thinking, a few sacrifices may be an unfortunate necessity. Hey, Aunt Natsuhi, let me ask something a little difficult, alright? If by coincidence Jessica had also been standing behind you that time, would you have chased Jessica from the room too? Sure, there may have been a degree of cruelty to it, but as a mother, you would have thought that you thought you should protect your daughter no matter what. And it was out of that duty that you sent them out, fully aware you'd eventually be held responsible for it. I'm not trying to criticize you for it or anything. I was just thinking about what a great mother Jessica has. Yes. You've been dealing with these incidents since morning, and you've been pulling all of us along this whole time, without losing your composure. If you've been confused as the rest of us, every last one of us may have been in the culprit's grasp by now. So, I think we all have to thank you.
Thank you. So what you're trying to say is this, right? You want her to act as Maria's mother too? I always thought of Maria as a real little sister and adored her. And yet, a bunch of things happened. We got a bit confused. And I said a lot of mean things to her and hurt her. Mom, please. Let's stay with Maria. No, with everyone. There was no culprit among us. Why can't the culprit behind all of this just be the witch Beatrice? So let's just stop doubting each other.
Natsui closed her eyes for a short while. Was she coping with her throbbing headache again? Or was she thinking of something?
Jessica, you're my precious daughter. The daughter I was finally blessed with for the whole 12 years after I married my husband. I would become the worst kind of demon to protect you.
That was some pretty strong language at the end there. She realized very well that these were only words. But even so, she was strongly resolved to protect her daughter, even if she had to become a demon. But that was because she was tormented by guilt. Today had been so long. So many things had happened in one day, and we'd been put under such pressure. I wonder if we had the right to greet tomorrow the way we are now. There it is. I found it. It's the magic circle. Within the books I had been constantly flipping through, I had finally found the same magic circle that had been drawn on the second sheet of the letter. George Aniki peered at it as well. This magic circle's name was the Third Magic Circle of Mars. The Hebrew written on it was from the Old Testament's Book of Psalms, Psalm 77, verse 13. What God is so great as our God? The meaning of the magic circle was discord. It agitates internal divisions and causes the enemy to bring about their own downfall. Whoa. Seriously? Could there be a more fitting way to describe our current situation and mental state? We couldn't help but be stunned into silence.
So, this letter was a trap? How'd they put it here? There wasn't anyone in the room except for us 8.
Anyway, let's ignore how they got it in here for now. The culprit was after just one thing. They wanted to spread the seeds of doubt inside this impregnable study and use us to throw the sacrificial sheep out. In that case, what they're after is the people who went out of this room.
Mom, what should we do? Those 4 are in danger.
It wasn't surprising that Aunt Natsuhi remained unpleasantly silent. Even if this was all a trap by the culprit, even if the 4 who had been chased out of the room were in danger, it had nothing to do with the safety of the 4 people here. And there was no way to prove the innocence of the 4 people we'd kicked out. If we're willing to let them die, then we shouldn't leave this room no matter what. That way is safest. Just then, all of a sudden, the piercing sound of a phone rang through the room. It was the antique extension phone that was set on Grandfather's study desk. It had started ringing right as we began this conversation. It was only natural that we would think of it as an SOS from the others we had kicked out. But then, Aunt Natsuhi spoke.
How can the telephone be? It should be broken down and unusable.
That doesn't matter. If that's Maria and the others calling for help.
If the problem with the phones was the culprit's work in the first place, then this phone call is more than likely.
With that one sentence, the ring of the phone, which had sounded like a scream for help, started to sound like the ghastly summons from an unknown person. Aunt Natsuhi hesitated over whether to pick up the receiver. Let's take it. Auntie. The phones might have been fixed for some reason. It could still be an urgent call from Maria-chan and the rest.
That's right! And on the slightest chance that it's a call from the killer, bring it on! Let him friggin' talk! It's just a phone call. No matter what they babble through the receiver, it's not like it's gonna hurt you.
If you won't pick it up, then I will.
I'll take it. Hello.
I stretched out my hand to take the receiver, but Aunt Natsuhi picked it up first as if to say she had it under control. We all held our breath, trying to figure out who the person on the other end of the phone was. But for a while, Aunt Natsuhi just kept saying hello. A silent phone call? There's no way Maria and the others would do something so creepy. Which means, this phone call, might it possibly? Really? Natsuhi stopped repeating hello and strained her ears, because she thought she heard something far away on the other end of the receiver. What was it? Huh? Is someone singing?
What do you mean, singing?
I don't know. Faintly, from the other end of the phone, I can hear someone singing. I wonder what it could be. Give it here for a sec. Hello? I half forced the receiver from the stunned Aunt Natsuhi's hand and pressed it against my ear. At first, I didn't hear anything, but because I had been told about it beforehand, I noticed. Not in a quiet voice, but rather far away from the receiver. I could hear a girl singing a song. The voice sort of sounded like Maria's, but that just made the situation even more inexplicable. At the very least, the one who had made the phone call hadn't been Maria. After all, Maria was singing some song far away from the receiver. In that case, the one who had made the phone call should have been Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, or Dr. Nanjo. And yet, they weren't saying anything. Why? For what reason? Who was the person who made this phone call?
Hey! Hello? Who is it? Answer me! Is that Maria singing? Answer me! What's going on? What is it?
I don't know. All I can say is, this is probably a trap, and Maria's in trouble. Natsuhi took the receiver again, but after calling into it several more times, she realized that she wasn't getting anywhere and hung up. She then dialed quickly, and clucked her tongue. All right, if the phones are back, we should be able to reach the police. But judging by her reaction, the outside line still wouldn't connect.
Let's go. Even if we know it might be a trap, we have to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Jessica, Aunt Natsuhi, stay here. When Aniki and I tried to dash out, Aunt Natsuhi stopped us.
Wait just a minute. I cannot let you go alone. I will go too. Jessica, you wait here.
And you'd have me be the only one left out? Not a chance, I'm coming too.
Yeah, it might be better that way. If the goal of the phone call was to split us up further, it wouldn't be a good idea to leave someone to watch this room.
There's no time to argue. Let's all go.
Natsuhi raised the rifle high and took the lead. I needed a weapon myself as well. I found a 3-pronged candelabra, which looked like it could be used for some strange ritual, and armed myself with it. With the spikes it had to fit the candles on, although they were short, it was almost like a 3-pronged spear.
Cthulhu, you are severely underestimating what Ryukishi is capable of. His previous series, Higurashi, featured almost primarily a cast of children, and they all died gruesomely multiple times.
Then the 4 of us left the study. We left the study, which should have been the safest place inside of the mansion. And so we had been lured out, despite the fact that we had barricaded ourselves in a safe, locked room. And perhaps we were even repeating exactly the same series of events that led to Grandfather disappearing from there.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much more than that about Higurashi, because I don't want to spoil anything too much about it if you haven't read it before, which you should. It's very good. But, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Maria! Where are you? Answer me!
I listened closely, but didn't hear anything. The mansion was vast, and the sound of the rain even noisier than before, as if the passing typhoon was making its last stand.
Maria-chan said that she wanted to watch TV in the parlor, right? Let's try going downstairs.
Yes. Good idea. Everyone, be mindful of your surroundings.
Yeah.
With Aunt Natsuhi in the center, her rifle readied and her finger on the trigger, we moved in a group, our backs together, checking our surroundings in all directions. As though the power of that magic circle designed to spread discord had brought it all into being.
Also, yeah, Daniel the Spaniel said, the 6 bodies weren't shown on screen, so we probably won't be seeing anything so awful. Yeah, for the most part, most of the violence in When They Cry visual novels is tastefully off-screen. It is just described. But you never actually, like, see it. Was the original Higurashi anime a good adaptation of the VN, or is it like Umineko? The Higurashi anime is okay. I would say that if you had watched it like completely devoid of any knowledge of the VN, it would be a perfectly fine way to experience the story. But once you do read the visual novel, there are so many things about it that are way better than the anime that like there's practically no way that you can go back. And the things that are missing in the anime that are in the visual novel, it does actually miss some pretty important things that, like, you know, if you had read the visual novel, once you know that stuff, it would actually like actively piss you off that that stuff is not in the anime. So, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. I got into Higurashi because of the anime, but now that I've read the visual novel, I really can't like go back to it.
As though the power of that magic circle designed to spread discord had brought it all into being. We had split up and furthermore had been dragged into dangerous territory. In other words, even now, in this very moment, we were just doing what the culprit wanted us to do. This was now a strange space where it wouldn't be odd for anything to suddenly occur. Aunt Natsuhi nervously pointed the barrel of the gun at every dark spot and shadow. It felt like that motion was out of fear rather than caution, but the rifle she held in her hand would surely be our trump card that the killer was afraid of.
You know, I've been thinking. It wouldn't be impossible to stick one of those ice picks into someone's chest, like in Kanon-kun's case, but splitting the skull and sticking them in the forehead like it was with my parents wouldn't be that easy.
You think the culprit had some kind of animal strength?
They probably had some kind of weapon, a device that can shoot or pound in those ice picks. That handle was too short to be driven in that deeply by human strength alone.
Whatever the case, they have enough force to break through a skull. It seems that Kanon's wound even reached his lungs. Even if you see our opponent, do not step out in front. You must not move away from my back.
Just how sinister and frightening was this weapon that could shoot those creepy ice picks? And could I do anything to combat it with just this candlestick in my hand? In the first murder, the culprit had probably assaulted 4 of the parents at once as they discussed the inheritance problem in the dining hall. And we also had 4 people. Apparently, I wasn't the only person thinking this. George Aniki, Jessica, and of course Aunt Natsuhi were stretching their senses to the utmost limit, in the highest and worst state of tension, slowly advancing one step, then another.
Hey, Kitty, thank you for the donation. Really appreciate it.
Sinful people we were. A world as terrifying as this, as we pushed Maria and the rest right into the middle of it, just because the seeds of doubt spread by that single litter. We finally reached the first floor. The parlor was just across the hall. When we listened carefully, we could hear it faintly. Maria's eerie singing voice. She wasn't singing naturally, as though she were in a good mood. She was singing mechanically, as if she was in music class in school and had been ordered to sing. The song she was singing was just a common folk song, one that everyone has probably sung in school at one time or another. But why that? In the middle of the night, alone, with all her heart, over and over? Why? When we had just left the study, we had called out in loud voices, asking Maria where she was. But this time, no one even said a single word. We hid our breath, and the sound of our footsteps heightened all of our senses, and examined everywhere around us to a neurotic degree as we advanced each step. The door to the parlor was closed, but we could hear Maria's singing voice through it. Aunt Natsuhi put her hand on the handle of the doorknob. George Aniki stopped her.
I'll open the door. Aunt Natsuhi, Bather-kun, ready your weapons.
All right. Be careful. They might attack as soon as we open it. George Nissan, watch yourself.
Sure. Okay then. Here we go.
He tried to open it, but immediately felt the hard resistance of the lock. Aunt Natsuhi took the bundle of keys from her pocket and gave them to George. There were about 10 keys, and none of us had a clue which was which. Because of this, George had to fumble around loudly and test several of the keys. Since we had hidden our footsteps, preparing to make a surprise attack on the room, this felt almost fatal. The whole time we could hear Maria's voice from the parlor singing the same song over and over again. It was like a broken, crazy cassette tape. In the morning, we had been in that room the whole time. all of the frightening things that occurred outside that room. So we had all convinced ourselves that even if nowhere else could be trusted, that room alone was safe. That baseless impression was quickly falling apart.
It unlocked.
Thank you. George-kun, Jessica, move behind me. Auntie, let's all jump in at once and split up in different directions. If we just stand around after opening the door, those ice picks might go flying right through the center. I'm well aware. Ready? Actually, I kinda wish I could call it quits. I readied myself. If they're going to throw ice picks at me, we'll see how they like my candlestick. Go! Natsuhi and I rammed into the door as we flew into the parlor, quickly splitting up left and right and searching the parlor for someone who might be waiting for us. But what our eyes landed upon was an altogether outlandish scene. The parlor was stained with blood. This place, where we had spent almost the entire day, where we had pressed in together to protect ourselves from some unknown malice, had become stained with fresh blood, had become an ocean of blood. On the floor lay Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Dr. Nanjo, their entire bodies stained bright red with blood.
Let's check that character menu, shall we? Starting with... Genji. Ronoe Genji, found in the parlor with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his stomach and his face smashed. On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. We had Dr. Nanjo. Found in the parlor with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his thigh and his face smashed. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. And Kumasawa. Found in the parlor with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into her calf and her face smashed. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill.
But the only way we could identify them was by their clothes. That was because... That's right. This was how this whole tragedy started. Their faces were all mashed up like Dad and the others in the storehouse, and you couldn't even tell where the eyes and noses were. It was like someone had vulgarly gobbled apart a tomato pot stew wrapped in a pie crust, all globby and sloppy. That wasn't all. Their bodies had other wounds. There were those demons' ice picks. They were in Genji-san's stomach, Dr. Nanjo's thigh, no, his knee? Yeah, it would be his knee. In the epitaph, the 6th twilight was the stomach. And on the 7th twilight, it said to gouge the knee. So after seeing them, one of them stuck near Kumasawa Bachan's calf. I couldn't help masochistically laughing. Yeah, of course it would be! On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. Now even the 8th twilight is over. And the next one, the 9th twilight. What was it again? Maria was there. She was facing the far wall, standing stock still, completely alone, facing away from this horrible scene, standing in front of the wall, singing her song over and over. There was nothing else in the room, just the corpses of the 3 who had been brutally killed, and the receiver still off its hook, showing that it had been this room the call had come from. Just that, and Maria, her back to the scene, facing the wall as she kept on singing. We couldn't even scream at this bizarre scene. We could only stare shocked, our mouths hanging loosely open.
Maria?
Jessica called out to her, but Maria showed no reaction. Alone, she kept singing, on and on. We had come here trying to save Maria from some approaching danger. So now that we had found her, we should be running up to her, hugging her, joyous that she was safe. And yet, not one of us could do that. Everyone thought it, but they couldn't say it. After all, because... That's right, it's crazy, and yet... No, it couldn't be.
Maria! Stop singing! Are you listening?
At some point, Natsuhi and I had pointed our weapons at Maria's back. I yelled at Maria in a violent voice, but there was no reaction. She just kept on singing.
With the candlestick still readied, I ran up to her and forcefully, no, violently slammed my hand down on her shoulder. Then I pulled on her shoulder, forcing her to turn around.
What? Oh.
Maria's small body was quickly pulled down and fell. And as though unhappy about how her singing had been interrupted, she looked into my face with her usual expression. Even in this gruesome situation, she was just like normal. Maria, what the hell is this? Who did this?
Oh, Beatrice.
Enough of that fucking bullshit! I threw the candlestick I had been holding against the wall. The violence of that reckless sound should have gone straight into Maria's heart, but her expression didn't change at all. Batherkun, stop! Maria-chan, this time, you should have seen the face of the culprit who killed those three. Was the culprit the same Beatrice who gave you the letter?
Oh, Beatrice.
Well, now we know for sure. There is a 19th person. Beatrice does exist! Then Maria, I'm sure you'll tell me this at least. How did they kill these three people? What the hell did they do to them to kill them in such a brutal way?
Don't know.
How the hell could you not know? It happened in this room! Are you trying to tell me you were so absorbed in singing that song that you didn't even notice? Calm down, Batherkun. Maria-chan, let's you and me have a chat, okay? Georgianiki, as he always did, crouched down next to Maria so that their eyes met, and talked to her very kindly. Maria-chan, can you tell me why you were facing the wall and singing that song?
Oh, Beatrice said to face the wall and keep singing for a long time.
So Beatrice came here then? Genji-san and the rest were still alive at that point, right?
We all came to the parlor and sat down. Genji-san made sure to lock the door.
It was locked when we got here. But then how did Beatrice get into the parlor?
Beatrice's a witch, so locks don't matter. She turned into butterflies and came in through the crack in the door.
Huh? Give it a rest with your goddamn jokes! Like hell that happened! What are you going on about?
You can't believe it? That's why I didn't want to say. Even if I told you, you don't believe. But Beatrice is a witch. She can do anything with her strange magic. That's why Beatrice doesn't care whether a door is locked or not.
And then, after Beatrice appeared, what happened to everyone?
Beatrice talked to us. She said grandfather's study was protected by a powerful force, and she couldn't enter no matter what she did. She told us that she'd select the 3 sacrifices from the 4 people in the parlor. They all begged her not to. Kumasawa-san kept saying, please, please don't. Beatrice chose. And then when she did, she said I would be fine. Why do you think? It's because I held the scorpion charm with the 5th magic circle of Mars, upon which Battler prayed for my safety and which he put his feelings into. Because of that power, Beatrice couldn't do anything to me, and me alone. So she decided to use the other 3 for the sacrifices. And then she said this to me.
Come, face the wall and sing a song for me. You will sing lots and lots of songs, so no matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you won't hear, you won't know. Come, let me hear many a fun song.
So I was singing the whole time, over and over. So I didn't hear anything, didn't know anything. And then, all of you came. Ugh.
You expect me to believe that crap? Don't take me for a moron!
Then who will you suspect this time? Suspect me? Try killing me right here? Even if you do that, Beatrice won't stop existing. Now the 8th twilight is over, and Beatrice will revive.
No, she fucking won't! I'm done with your shit! I've had enough to last me a lifetime! There's no such thing as witches! That crap won't work on me! I won't accept it. Beatrice doesn't exist! I'll never accept that she does. I won't let her exist! I won't let her revive! The legend's a legend, and that's all it's ever gonna be! I won't accept something like that! Battler, stop! It's not like Maria killed them or let them die. Beatrice came and Maria had to obey, unable to resist.
I'm gonna turn my mic down just a tiny bit.
Huh? Natsuri? She isn't here. Huh? What? Mom? Where did she go?
She went out by herself just now, reading a letter.
Letter? That makes sense. The culprit's done with the 8th twilight and it's all gone swimmingly for them. They might as well left a letter so they could brag even more.
We had been so wrapped up in questioning Maria that we forgot to look for one. But even as well armed as she was, why had she left the room all by herself in this dangerous mansion after reading it? Jessica tried to chase after her and tugged at the handle to the door, but it resisted strangely and wouldn't open. Mom! Mom! What's going on? Open! Open! It was only natural. Natsuhi had picked up the candlestick which Battler had thrown at the wall, and which had fallen to the floor. She had then skillfully wedged it between the doorknobs on the double doors like a bolt, holding them closed. The intricate design of the candlestick meant it jammed well, and formed a truly sturdy seal on the door. The tragic scream of a daughter for her mother. Did it reach Natsuhi's ears or not? Ooh, one of the best tracks in the OST here. Natsuhi was alone in the entrance hall. It was the place where the portrait of Beatrice had been hung. Natsuhi threw down the final letter from Beatrice that she had read in the parlor, readied her rifle again, and in a voice that rang clear, yelled in the massive space that was the entrance hall. I am Ushirimiya Natsuhi, representative of the Ushirimiya family! Show yourself, Golden Witch Beatrice! The entrance hall was dimly lit. Other than a faint light which shone on the center of the room, everything was blotted out by the jet-black darkness. In that darkness, butterflies glittering in gold squirmed, twinkled, and sneered. Natsuhi gave one more huge gulp and pointed the cold barrel of the gun at the gold butterflies. At last, you have shown yourself. I still can't believe that something like you really existed. But that isn't a problem. Both I, bearing the title of representative to the Ushirimiya family, and you, claiming to have succeeded the head of the Ushirimiya family, are here, right now! At this point, whether you are a witch or not is a trivial problem. Come, let us settle this! Which of us will truly succeed the Ushirimiya family? Me, Ushirimiya Natsuhi? Or you, Beatrice? Allow me to respectfully accept your request for a duel. The gold butterfly slowly formed a human shape, which walked into the dim light. Natsuhi readied the rifle and glared. The witch raised her golden staff overhead and laughed. Natsuhi's finger slowly squeezed the trigger. And go! Battler made an all-out dash into the door and rammed into it, crushing the candlestick which had been barring it and making it possible for a big gap to be opened in the door. He kept kicking the candlestick through the gap, and the door was finally released. At that time, they heard it. They clearly heard, just once, the crisp sound of gunfire. Mom! Mom! Jessica-chan, you mustn't run off by yourself! That was the sound of a gun just now! Natsu, he just shot! At who? At the culprit! The noise had come from the entrance hall, and the entrance hall looked like a stage, like the heroine of a tragedy, lying down and bathed in light. Arrayed in the beauty of that silence, Aunt Natsuhi was face up, crumpled on the floor. Half crazed, Jessica ran up to Aunt Natsuhi. On her forehead, it was almost as though a sparkling shard of pigeon's blood ruby had been placed there. Ushirimiya Natsuhi, found shot to death in front of the witch's portrait. How impudent of her to challenge a witch with nothing but a mere gun. Of course she'd end up like this. And, from it, a single stream of blood makeup passed by her eye and began to traverse down her face. The faint smell of gunpowder smoke came from the barrel of the rifle that Natsuhi still grasped. Huh? Then,
Shot herself? In the forehead? Why? Mom! 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 I don't get it! Why did Auntie run away alone? Why did she shoot through her own forehead?
Maria-chan, Natsuhi read a letter before she left the room, right? There's no letter here. Damn it, what did she read? And why was she lured out here?
I don't know. I don't know. Who cares about that? What the hell? Why suicide? Why? Why did you leave me alone?
Jessica clung to her mother's corpse, crying earnestly.
My body consumed by an anger I didn't know what to do with. I stole the rifle from Aunt Natsuhi's hand and spun around, pointing the barrel of the gun into the darkness on all sides, as though I was pointing a light from a lighthouse, trying to find the culprit. George Aniki, even in this situation, was trying to calmly figure something out, but that effort might have been doomed to futility. And Maria alone was completely indifferent. Is she treating this as some kind of predetermined fate? No, that's not it. This is all a prelude to a wonderful world. The door to the Golden Land will finally open.
On the 9th twilight, the witch revives, and none shall be left alive. And on the 10th twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold. It's all over now, Beatrice. Congratulations, congratulations. So lead me. Lead me to the Golden Land you told me of. Right now.
There, all of the dead will be resurrected, and even the love they once possessed will be revived. So, in Maria's eyes, it's just as though all of today's tragedies never even happened. And all of those days she spent deprived of love never happened either.
Will you cut that out? What's so fun? What's to be congratulated? There were 18 people on this island. 14 are dead. Only the 4 of us are left. I'm definitely not gonna die. Until the night is over. No, until the typhoon passes. And the seagulls gather again at the harbor. I'm definitely not gonna die. I'm gonna survive. I'm gonna survive, definitely.
Give it up, Battler. Guns are meaningless against Beatrice. Besides, survival and everything else don't matter now, because it's over. The journey has already ended. See? Look at the clock.
Huh? The clock? Hearing those words, I looked at my wristwatch. Both hands were almost touching near the top. Very soon it would be 12 a.m. In other words, 24 hours. When you think about it, isn't 24 a strange time? It can be called 24, but it can also be called 0. It's the hour at the culmination of the previous day. And at the same time, it's the hour 0 as the next day begins.
Beatrice!
Maria suddenly called out happily and ran towards the darkness. It was almost as though Beatrice was somewhere in that darkness, and Maria was running up to her. As I looked down the barrel of that rifle, as Jessica hugged her mother's corpse, as George Aniki stood there, shocked, we gazed into the darkness. Our eyes fixed just in front of Beatrice's portrait, and there, Maria leapt into a hug, with the portrait's subject.
You've got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. Impossible. This madness can't possibly be. Witches don't exist. I won't accept it. Things like you must not exist, because this is a human world. You think I could accept something that's not human? Never. I will never.
I pulled hard on the rifle's lever. The cartridge, which was ejected, fell on the floor, and with a new cartridge was loaded. Then, I sighted the witch down the barrel. Maria turned around. Still clinging to the golden witch, she turned around.
Didn't I tell you? It's meaningless. Mere bullets are meaningless against Beatrice. Humans are so stupid, aren't they?
I won't accept the existence of witches! Who are you? Just try moving one step! Just try moving one finger! I'll blast you away!
The laughter of the witch, no, the witches, was joined by the laughter of even the large clock in the hall. It was probably telling us that the time was 24 hours. It was both a tone telling us that we had reached the culmination of this day, and a tone informing us that all had returned to nothing. The rules had specified that the witch would win when time ran out.
Butler, Giorgio Nichan, and Jessica Onechan, this journey has ended, and the witch has revived. You see?
And none shall be left alive. The witch shall praise the wise, and bestow 4 treasures. One shall be all of the Golden Land's gold. One resurrects all of the dead people's souls. One even revives all the love they possessed. And for the witch to eternally rest. Rest in peace, my beloved witch, Beatrice.
We got a little roll before, a little credits roll before we get to the tea party. You might have to read this to yourself a little bit because it auto scrolls, so it might get a little faster than me.
The storm passed, and the leaden clouds that had enshrouded the island for so long began to clear away. Sunbeams shone from the rifts between the clouds. Yesterday's storm seemed like a lie. Just as someone had wished, the seagulls returned to the harbor once again and let their lively cries be heard. Afterwards, the police arrived and conducted an investigation of the scene. The corpses of the children, who were believed to have survived until the very end, were never found. However, from the body parts that were discovered and the unimaginably gruesome nature of the scene, the police were forced to conclude that the chances of survival for any of the 18, including the children, were hopelessly dim. Just how gruesome was the banquet of the witch, and how beautiful was the Golden Land. Those tales are for them alone to tell amongst themselves. They have no tale for those who arrived after the banquet had ended. One can only imagine what had transpired during the course of those 2 days. However, the witch was fickle. She made a point of leaving behind this tale which had no need to be told and permitted it to be spread. A few years later, a strange wine bottle drifting on the waves of the quayside of a neighboring island was recovered by a fisherman. Stuffed inside were tightly rolled notebook pages, crammed full to the edges with minuscule writing. Written there was this tale. It would be through these pages that people would come to know of the mysterious and riddle-filled 2-day period that began on October 4th, 1986. This would be referred to as the Rokkenjima mass killings, or the killings of Rokkenjimas, but dilettantes called the legend of the witch's serial murder case. Yeah, it's getting too fast. Spread far and wide. However, not one of these interpretations arrived at the truth of the facts. And while the notebook pages tell of this mysterious incident, they do not tell of the truth behind it. In fact, perhaps not even the writer of the notebook knew the truth. Perhaps she had desired to know. According to the writer's signature, her name was Ushiramiya Maria. Furthermore, as a result of an all-out police search, part of Maria's body had been discovered, a piece of her jaw. It was one of the rare instances in which the owner of a body part had been identified through dental records. There are many parts that could not be linked to a specific person, so the jaw could be called a fortunate find. Hopelessly dim, no other parts found or identified. Let us conclude this tale with the final paragraph of the notebook pages that Ushiramiya Maria left behind. By the time you read this, I will probably be dead, although there may or may not be a corpse. You who have read this, please uncover the truth. That is my only wish. Ushiramiya Maria. To this very day, the truth of the witch legend serial murder case has not been brought to light. First game, Legend of the Golden Witch, result. And there's all the people who died. Sorry, it was so fast. I tried. Also, I couldn't interrupt myself, but thank you so much to Abaddon for gifting 20 memberships. That's crazy. Thank you so much. Holy crap. That's awesome.
The winner is the Golden Witch Beatrice. Of the 18, none solved the riddle of the golden time. All 18 died. When the seagulls cried, none were left alive. Nobody spoil in the chat for people who don't know yet. And that, hell yeah, is episode 1. But we've still got the tea parties left. After we finish the, I'm going to give you guys a little update on the itinerary real quick. After we finish the tea parties, I am going to tell you about the future of these streams. And then for a little while before the stream ends, I would like to engage you all. Please, nobody who has actually read all of Umineko contribute to this, or like give hints, because I don't want there to be any spoilers. But everybody in this chat right now that has never read Umineko before, that has been tuning in for these streams, at the end of this stream, for a little while, I would like to read your theories. I would like you to tell me what you think and justify your reasoning. I would like to hear all about it. But for now, before we do that, let's get to the tea party, shall we? Please pull up a seat and wind down. Was your sojourn on Rokenjima a pleasant one? The Golden Witch has gifted you with an invitation to her tea party. I hope that you will participate. Mark 0, reasoning for what? Reasoning as for, like, if you think it's magic or if you think it's not magic, and why. Purgatorio. You're going to think that this is a silly little aside at first. Let me give you a hint. It is not. Please, pay very close attention.
Hey everyone! Good job finishing Umineko no Nakukoroni! Man, I still didn't have a clue what was going on when the story ended.
So, just what happened? Was that basically the bad ending where time runs out before the culprit can be exposed? Definitely a bad ending. Ugh.
I think so too. Beatrice's letter, which Maria-chan read on the first day, did tell us in advance to solve the riddle of the epitaph. We were all so busy trying to protect ourselves and look for the culprit that we didn't even take a shot at it.
Yes, that's true. If we had actually tried to solve the riddle, I'm sure things would have ended differently.
I wonder about that. Shannon-chan, you did a good job too. You don't have to be our waitress and serve tea. After all, this is a rap party. As a group of people who met a horrible fate, let's all get along and lick each other's wounds. Lick, 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 lick.
Speaking of horrible fate, Shannon beats the rest of us hands down, doesn't she? She was a beautiful character, so I thought she'd definitely survive until the very end. But she was killed right in the beginning, and on top of that, what was it? Half of her face was smashed, right? That's the worst. That was my role, so, there was no way around it.
Nason, it's nothing for you to worry about. Judging by the final epilogue, even Milady and the others met with a considerably tragic end.
It seems that way. I think I remember seeing this horrible picture kind of like my entire body had been eaten apart and dismembered.
Speaking of which, don't you think Kanon-kun's last moments were the coolest? Even though he had the tables turned on him, it was a showdown with the culprit, right? It's a whole bunch better than our confusing last moments.
Though in the end, I was no match for her.
Still, I thought the Kanon-kun's death was a pretty big hint. I mean, because of that, it became clear that a 19th person existed.
Yes. Everyone's location, at that time, everyone's location was obvious, so it was impossible for anyone other than some unknown 19th person to kill Kanon-kun.
Oh, I did say it was Beatrice from the beginning over and over. Ugh.
I don't want to believe it, but that does prove that a culprit was a witch calling herself Beatrice.
That's right. There are many strange things that happened which a witch couldn't do, which a human couldn't do. Only a witch could do things like Auntie Eva's locked room murder. A human couldn't do that.
Not only is it clear that a 19th person exists, but it's also obvious that this person holds a power that even humans can't imagine.
In that case, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling this person Beatrice.
We probably met at the very end. Met with the Golden Witch.
That's why I kept telling you that Beatrice exists. It all went bad because no one ever believed. Even one of my witch friends says miracles won't happen if you don't believe. That's right. Beatrice-sama is generous to those who respect her.
I feel as if, despite the fact that horrible incidents kept occurring one after the other, Maria-sama wasn't in danger from Beatrice-sama until the end.
Maria did believe in Beatrice from the very beginning. But then so did Kanon-kun and the others, so how do you explain why they were killed?
Beatrice-sama probably had her reasons.
If the epitaph poem represented Beatrice-sama's resurrection ritual, then she needed many sacrifices. He simply must have been designated by one of those.
Shannon-chan, you met a horrible end. At the very least, I wish your death had been more peaceful and pretty.
Well, it's not like it hurt. Besides, as you can see right now, I'm perfectly fine, so don't worry.
Shannon proved this by stroking her cheek, which had been crushed during the story, and everyone laughed out loud, smiling.
Well, it feels a bit weird saying this, but I was sure this story would be in the standard mystery genre. I'm a little surprised to find out it's fantasy. After all, a story revolving around an inheritance set on a Western-style mansion, shut away on an isolated island, I thought that was the classic formula for mysteries.
It's not fantasy. Beatrice exists. Ugh.
Yes, we know. Beatrice-sama does exist.
That's right. Beatrice-sama does exist.
I hate to admit it, but I've got no other choice. Because it's obvious that a 19th person, a witch, was involved.
She pulled off many things that would be impossible for humans. During the story, we thought all kinds of things, trying to deny that. But now I can say it clearly. Each one of them, all of them, were crimes impossible for a human. Those crimes would be impossible to carry out unless it was the witch Beatrice using all of the power magic could provide.
The culprit was a witch. That point's perfectly clear. Long live Beatrice-sama.
Everyone believed. I'm happy.
Gods and witches might seem terrifying to people who are frightened of them,
But I think they must have affection for those who believe and respect them.
I think it's just as you say.
So, now we're all done playing with murder cases. Now's the time to pull ourselves together and try hard to solve the riddle of the epitaph, just like Beatrice said, right?
Agreed. Beatrice will definitely be happy.
Well, we all ignored the letter during the story, after all.
Even though it was thrust right in front of us, we almost completely ignored it. I kind of feel sorry for Beatrice-sama.
I have a memento with an epitaph on it. Let's all solve the puzzle. Let's all solve the puzzle.
This story probably went wrong since that time.
That may be so. Maybe we should have tried solving the epitaph's riddle from the beginning, like Beatrice-sama said. Well, it's a little late now. Even so, let's try solving it now and see if the witch forgives us. Let's go and try to solve the riddle of the epitaph. Here we are. Behold the sweet fish river running through my beloved home of old.
As Maria put her notebook on the table and opened to the page where the epitaph was written, everyone peered closely at it and had fun and lively discussion as they started guessing this and that about the riddle. Surrounded by the smell of black tea and the freshly baked vanilla cookies, they spent the time comfortably and happily.
Wait a second, you guys.
Battler said in a tone that ruined the mood. His expression looked a little unhappy. What could he not like about all this fun?
I've been listening to you guys, and why did you all stop thinking? Why are you so sure that the witch was behind this? Don't you realize that stuff like that doesn't exist?
With just those words, the happy atmosphere of the tea party disappeared in no time at all. George and Jessica, and Shannon and Kanon, and Maria, all of them stared blankly, wondering why Battler was saying such weird things. Even the foolish and arrogant Battler noticed he had said the wrong thing.
Well, come on. Isn't it clear that these crimes were impossible for a human?
Yeah. None of the cases would be possible for a human.
That's right. After all, wasn't it full of things that you couldn't explain using humans?
I don't understand what you're saying, Battler-sama.
I'm the one who doesn't have a clue what you guys are talking about. Isn't it obvious that humans committed these crimes? There's obviously no such thing as witches, right?
Then, what about when I was killed in the storehouse and something horrible was done to half of my face? If the culprit was human, how could they have accomplished it?
Well, I mean, It's hard to imagine how they could have done something that awful. But that was the Rose Garden storehouse, right? I'm sure there were plenty of weird tools in there. Don't ask me, but they could have used some electrical tool like a grinder or an electric saw, couldn't they?
That's... Okay, Battler. Then how do you explain Grandfather's disappearance from the locked room of his study? Grandfather disappeared all of a sudden, even though the door was sealed, remember?
We talked about that during the story, too. It's not impossible the grandfather used some tricks to fool the receipt. It's also possible that he went out of the window or fell out the window, and not so he locked it from the inside. I could think of a bunch of tricks you could use without relying on magic. You see?
That makes sense, but...
In that case, Batherkin, how do you explain the way my parents were killed in the guest room? The door was sealed by a lock and chain. Naturally, the windows were sealed too. How would you suggest that a human could have killed my parents?
Well, you're right. We did have to leave that trick alone during the story. Anyway, there's a good chance the culprit had the key at least, and it was possible to look in through the crack of the door that the chain allowed. This is extremely far-fetched, but it is possible that some device was used through that crack, or maybe they brought something out through the crack. Well, even though chains are incredibly simple, they're a big factor in constructing a locked room. But authors have done almost every possible locked room trick there is to do by now. If you bought just a few locked room mysteries from some bookstore or other, you could probably find some trick that would fit perfectly. Anyways, I can't think of one now, but I can state for certain that a human could manage it somehow if they tried hard enough.
Isn't that argument horribly irrational? It's just ridiculous to claim that it's possible for a human to do something even though you can't explain how.
Why is that ridiculous? Why did all of you stop thinking? Even if it looks impossible, it has to be doable. Doesn't it always work like that?
Battler, you're the one being ridiculous. If you think a human could have done it, try explaining how. You can't, can you?
And just because I can't explain it, that immediately makes the culprit a witch? With that argument, all of the unsolved crimes in the world could be resolved by saying a witch is the culprit.
Battler, you're sidestepping the issue. You aren't explaining anything. We're saying a human can't do it. Therefore, the culprit is something that isn't human. And that something is a witch. And yet you keep arbitrarily deciding that witches are impossible even though you can't explain anything. It's almost like humanity was during the Dark Ages. Like those fools who claim that the Earth couldn't possibly be spinning. That the heavens had to be spinning around the Earth even though they couldn't say how.
That kind of argument pisses me off. So this is basically what you're trying to say. If I can't explain how a human could do it, then I must accept that the culprit is the witch Beatrice?
It's not like we're forcing you. We were just wondering on what basis you can say such nonsense.
Nonsense? Hey, is what I've been saying really all that weird? Am I the one who's crazy? You guys are really starting to freak me out.
Battler-sama, when I died in the boiler room, I was killed by a 19th person who shouldn't exist. Can you explain how a human could have done that? At the time, the locations of the 18 were well known. Even so, I was killed.
We talked about that in the story as well. Kumasawa Bachan, for example. She said that she followed right after you'd headed down into the boiler room, but for all we know, that might have been a lie. She might have entered the boiler room with you and caught you by surprise. Or maybe when you stepped into the boiler room, you activated some kind of trap, one that might have been set up to hit you with one of those ice picks. After all, the stink of Grandfather's body was coming from the incinerator. Someone was bound to come, so all the culprit had to do was set up a trap, and it would be more than possible for them to stay away from that place and create an alibi for the time of your death.
You talk about a trap in the boiler room, but what kind of trap?
That's right. After that happened, we all immediately ran over to the boiler room. But we didn't find any kind of weird device like that.
That's correct. Battler-sama, what kind of trap do you claim I was killed with?
Well, I don't know what. But anyway, they must have pulled off some kind of trap, or maybe someone is lying, or what about this? Canon-kun, what if the whole thing was just you play acting? That's it, you were just play acting. Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi were also play acting. They made the locked room themselves and were only pretending to be dead.
Battler, has your head been feeling alright? Should I bring some cold drinks?
Don't look at me with those pitying eyes. I'm not saying something that crazy. I'm just pointing out possibilities that could have been used as tricks, all right? Look, isn't one of the cliches in mystery stories that the victims aren't really dead?
Cliches?
Okay, so when Kenon-kun was killed, we really did know for sure where the rest of us were. And let's assume that Kumasawa Bachan wasn't lying. But that only holds true for the survivors. If the culprit pretended to be dead, placed themselves together with the real victims to hide themselves, and then acted on their own later, then everything would be explained.
I guess. Are you trying to say that Auntie Ava or one of the rest of them was the culprit? But Dr. Nanjo confirmed everyone's death as a doctor, remember? That's right. Dr. Nanjo checked out all of the victims. Battler-sama, for your theory to work, wouldn't Dr. Nanjo have to be one of the culprits too?
Yeah, that's right. Once you consider that Dr. Nanjo might have been one of the culprits and faked the proclamation of death, the whole story changes. See, that's also a cliché in mystery novels, isn't it?
But Dr. Nanjo was also killed.
About that. That's right, Dr. Nanjo faked his death. I mean, there wasn't anyone except Dr. Nanjo who could examine corpses properly, and everyone was really confused them anyway. We didn't have any spare time to check and see if he still had a pulse. With this theory, any one of the dead people could have been walking around.
I think it would have been hard for the 6 of us who died in the beginning to do that. After all, the shutter was closed, and there was a padlock that couldn't have been opened from the inside.
Yeah, Mom was holding on to that key. So, was Mom one of the culprits too?
Wait a sec. Maybe it was impossible for the first 6, but in the case of Aniki's parents, the door was only locked on the outside. So they could have opened it from the inside.
Sorry, I haven't said anything to the chat in a little while. Thank you, Wither Survives. I appreciate it. And same to you, Delairam? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry. Yes. Oh, thank you. Croquettes with Worcestershire sauce. Hold on, I'm gonna grab a drink actually. I should pull my chair back because I scrunched up the rug. Please, 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 for the love of God, rug, please. Damn, I love eating croquettes while watching a mental breakdown. True. Sorry, I need to... take a bite of food because I'm so hungry. It's so good. Very good. One more and then I'll get back to reading. Yeah, somebody answer Wampadillo. My mouth is too full. To answer it, a wild Hannah appeared. Yeah, I would honestly think George probably. I mean, like, a lot of them probably would be, to be completely honest, but George definitely.
Wait a sec. Maybe it was impossible for the first 6, but in the case of Aniki's parents, the door was only locked on the outside, so they could have opened it from the inside. That's right. After we left the room, maybe they jumped out the window and got to the boiler room first. Is that too much? Or maybe Dr. Nanjo made a mistake when examining the corpses. Look, he said it himself, right? He said that there was a very high probability of making a mistake when examining corpses. They disguised it well, or prepared a substitute corpse or something, and faked their own death. Let's leave the method or trick they used for later, and, you see, it's not that hard to deny a 19th person existed. Much less a witch. At least that much is completely impossible.
I don't know why you've been trying so stubbornly to say that one of us is the culprit. In other words, you want to suspect one of your relatives?
That's not it. It's just I can't easily accept that a 19th person existed. And even if one did, I think we should construct our argument from the point of view that the culprit was a human. Witches are something you only start talking about in desperation at the very end, after everything has been disproved. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, come on, there's no way witches exist, right? Why have you all been casually accepting that the culprit was a witch? I think it's great how your family love makes you hate the thought that someone close to you is a murderer. But is it alright to just brush things over like that? Don't you want to find the detestable culprit who killed so many people? Aniki, you want to avenge your parents, don't you? Jessica, you want to avenge Kanon-kun, and Kanon-kun, you want to avenge Shannon-chan, right? Shannon-chan, you should at least want to know who it was that killed you. Why have you all totally surrendered and decided that the culprit was a witch? What's wrong with all of you?
The foolish and short-tempered battler tried to force his ignorance on the others by yelling at them. However, everyone just looked at him pityingly, silently watching over him. Then the wise Maria laughed and pointed out Battler's mistake for him.
We're just astounded. All you've been doing is repeating this nonsense, thinking you've figured something out, Battler. So what? And? How would a human do it? Concretely? Whenever we ask you those questions, all you can say is, I just can't think of anything now, or with some kind of device or something, using abstract words to run away and evade the topic. In fact, I want to ask you, Battler, why don't you believe in Beatrice? She exists, so why don't you believe?
Because she doesn't exist. Witches don't exist. There's no way.
He was almost like a stubborn child, refusing for no reason. The pitying gazes quietly blanketed Battler, but they didn't reach his stubborn heart.
You're acting totally just like a kid who can't have his way.
Battler-sama, I understand your feelings, but Beatrice-sama does exist.
Battler-kun, why don't you believe? Look at how much circumstantial evidence there is.
I don't accept the argument that if I can't explain it, it's all the witch. If you don't know how a light bulb shines, if you don't know the principle, does that mean it's all magic? If it doesn't, it doesn't, does it? There's nothing that can't be explained without magic. All of this about witches and magic is just abdication of thought. You just surrendered and gave up because you don't understand what happened. I'm right, aren't I?
Well, I'm not surprised, but it looks like you're the only one who's not going to believe no matter what. If even a single person doesn't believe, the miracle won't occur. So if you don't rethink your ignorant theories, this miracle, the magic, won't be completed.
Now I see. I finally figured it out. So in other words, you guys want me to get to say that the witch exists. You guys want to get me to say that the witch exists, don't you? If everyone accepts this lie, it will become the truth. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Well, too bad. This is the one place I'm going to have to say too bad. That's no goddamn good. Good at all. I refuse. You guys are all pressing me, and that is exactly why it's no goddamn good.
Why?
Sorry, but why don't you let me flip over the chessboard one last time? If you want to force me to accept that there's a witch, there's a really easy way. And it's not the roundabout way of saying humans can't do it, so it must be a witch. All you have to do is actually show it to me, the way a witch did it, with magic. Furthermore, what Maria said earlier is what really dug her grave. You said that if even one person doesn't believe, a miracle won't occur. But real miracles happen whether people believe in them or not, even if I alone don't believe. So any miracles or magic or witches that exist only because I believe in them are downright lies.
The uneasy mood following at Battler's ignorant rant was thoughtfully blown away by a very refreshing and light laugh. One moment, I think that's a good opportunity to take another bite of food. I'll leave you hanging on the suspense of the moment. These are so good, but they're so falling apart. I wonder who left. Give me a minute. Okay. One croquette devoured. One left. Now, we will get back to it. Actually, turn the volume down just a little bit. Whose laugh? Battler was surprised by that voice, which he had never heard before. When he looked at George and Jessica, at Shannon and Canon and Maria, he noticed that they had all gone respectfully silent.
Beatrice.
Wonderful. I haven't been able to meet such a charming human for quite some time.
Who are you?
So you don't even know the host of the tea party to which you were invited. Simply wonderful.
You're graced by the presence of the Golden Witch who has lived for 1,000 years, Beatrice-sama.
Yo, let's go! $10 donation from Psycho Doggy Beatrice. She's finally here. She finally shows herself. The woman of all time. The Joker for women.
I am most honored to see you, Beatrice-sama.
Please forgive Battlerkin's ranting.
This guy's just stubborn, and he still doesn't understand the situation he's in. It is fine. After 1,000 years, most witches get tired of living. Once in a while, it's nice to meet a man with a backbone such as yourself.
It's quite an honor to be present when Beatrice shows herself, Battler.
Now this is some shit. Are you really that desperate to make me believe that a witch, that a 19th person is the culprit? This is starting to get interesting. And it's no goddamn good. You must be an illusion of the witch Beatrice who's asserted by Maria and the others. And only when everyone believes in your existence will you finally be allowed to exist. You're that kind of fictional being, right? That's why you want to make me believe too. You can't exist, because I alone don't believe in you. Isn't that right?
Your power of understanding isn't bad for a common mortal who knows nothing of magic.
I see. It seems you were born with a strong magic-resisting power.
The natural enemy of us witches. No matter how much we tip you aside down and shake you, you'll never believe in us. Therefore, magic will fall short against you. That attitude of yours makes a great deal of sense.
I've got no clue what you're saying. It's very kind of you to go to the trouble of showing yourself to us, but I don't believe you exist in the slightest. It's true that many strange things have happened during those 2 days. Like Maria said earlier, even though I think all of the tricks could be explained, I still can't lay out the practical details of each one. But that doesn't mean I'll surrender. I'm different from the rest of them, see? I'll never argue that it was the work of a witch just because I can't explain it.
My interest in you grows deeper.
Cthulhu with the $2 Canadian, brioche treach. Thank you so much.
It will be worth my time to break you. You're just the kind of man I'd love to force into praising my name. You're just the kind of man who I'd love to force into kissing my toes.
What do you mean by this? Talk all the nonsense you want. I deny you exist. All of the events can be explained with human tricks. There's no room for even a speck of magic or witches.
Wonderful. This is the perfect form of diversion from 1,000 years of boredom. Then let me ask you.
A short while ago, you said that using the crack in the door would be sufficient to kill Ava and Hideyoshi, right? Explain how you would do that using your human tricks. Suddenly jumping right into the toughest part, are you? Does that mean that this is the trick you're proudest of? Miss Real Culprit?
Beatrice shook her golden pipe, and 7 colors of gentle smoke trailed out of the end. The smoke quickly obscured the surroundings, and they were suddenly in the hallway of the mansion. In front of their eyes, a slightly opened door secured by a chain. Yes, it was the entrance to the room where Ava and Hideyoshi had been killed.
Nice trick.
Now then, show me what you would do through this small crack, Battler.
They probably had some device to shoot those ice picks. If they use that...
How would you aim at Ava over the bed when you can't even see that far through this crack? And how would you reach Hideyoshi in the bathroom with the door shut?
Damn it. There is a crack. There should be some way.
If you can't think of one, allow me.
Oh? Go on. How would a great witch do it then? Come on, let's see your little trick.
Battler, you're being rude to Beatrice.
It's fine, quite fine. What a charming man. It will make it all the more enjoyable to break him.
You really want to make me kiss your toes that much? Only if I surrender. But watch, I'll definitely expose this trick and then I'll make you kiss my ass instead.
What a charming man. I shall remember that promise. Weak witches kiss the behinds of demons to gain power. Because there's no greater oath of total submission. It's words like those that give me the desire to subjugate you. Paying no mind to Battler's crude ranting, Beatrice once again waved her golden pipe. Yes, for that golden pipe was her precious magic wand. Come, arise, children. I am the guide of purgatory. Wield the 7 stakes which forgave the deadly sins. Guided by those magic words, which sounded like a psalm, 7 stakes gathered. They were the stakes of the 7 demons symbolizing the deadly sins of sinful people. Beelzebub and Asmodeus, come, forgive their sins. Release the spirits of the sinners.
What?
The stakes of Beelzebub and Asmodeus responded to Beatrice's call. The 2 demonic stakes burst into motion like billiard balls struck by a cue and were sucked in through the crack of the door. Then came the sound of them deflecting repeatedly off the walls of the room, making a sound like a woodpecker. And finally, a pleasant sound could be heard. One more bite. I am loving you guys' reactions right now, just so you know. It was a small, satisfying sound, like the one heard when someone is chopping firewood and the falling axe neatly and easily slices through the wood. It was the sound of the 2 stakes burying themselves deep into Ava and Hideyoshi's foreheads. Right through the middle. Want to see? They had definitely heard 2 sounds like someone's forehead being split open. Battler wasn't permitted to see it since he was on the other side of the door. But those 2 had died again, and this second time they lay not an inch apart from where they had lain the last time, with the exact same blood spray as before.
You must be crazy. This is insane! You can't kill people with this insanity!
I most certainly can. I can kill them just like this. Suddenly, they were no longer in the hall, but seated at the tea party they had started from. Everyone but Battler was sitting meekly, but Canon was moaning, fresh blood dangling from his mouth. Such bad manners for a tea party. Satan's stake was buried deep in Canon's chest.
Canon-kun! Canon-kun! Damn it!
Battler was the only one getting agitated. George, Jessica, Shannon, everyone else was meekly hanging their heads like students being told off by a teacher. Canon, you were captivated by a trifling anger and tried to disturb my banquet. Your deadly sin is being easily captured by anger. Cleanse yourself, regret, and do it over.
Beatrice-sama, please forgive him. I think Canon-kun has repented enough.
Wonderful. I'm generous to those who respect me.
Cut the crap! Don't think for a second that this piss-poor show of theatrics will convince me of your sorry existence! Like hell you're a 1,000-year-old witch! Your tricks aren't 1,000 years old, at best they're the accumulation of 100 years of cliches that the mystery world created. They're not magic! No way are they magic! All of these crimes can be explained with human tricks!
You would explain my 1,000 years with 100 years by humans? Good, good. That's why I like you.
foolish, Battler.
Stop yourself, Battler-kun. Beatrice-sama is someone you can't go against.
Shannon started moaning, holding her cheek. Maybe she had a toothache, but it didn't look anything like a toothache. A slight redness spread across the cheek Shannon was holding. It looked like that redness was causing Shannon unbearable pain. She started to press her nails into her cheek, and drops of sweat appeared all over her body.
Shannon! Hang in there! Hang in there! What's going on? Damn it! What the hell is all that red stuff?
It expanded rapidly, covering half of Shannon's face. Then, that stupid dunce Battler finally realized.
Please, Battler-kun, please believe in Beatrice-sama. I beg you! Because you won't believe. Because you won't believe. The magic is wearing off!
For the first time in his life, Battler heard that sound, like a pomegranate splitting. The red spray even landed on Battler's face. How sad. Shannon's face had been split in half, and her last horrible moments in that storehouse had been repeated once again.
Shannon! Shannon! Damn you! Damn you! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Don't humiliate the dead! Don't humiliate the dead!
This time, red patterns began to spread across George's entire body. It was like the beautiful cloud drawn by milk when it poured into its black tea.
Ah, we don't care about this one. Me leaning in to take another bite of food as George dies. Shame.
They slowly spread out and extended across his entire body. As they grew more saturated in color, they seemed to give George increasingly greater pain. Looking at those bizarre patterns, Battler was petrified as he frantically thought with his pitifully clumsy imagination about the nature of the strange deaths that George and the others had experienced. Before long, that redness reached the nearby Jessica as well.
Stop! 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 What did Aniki do? What did Jessica do? Just stop!
Battler. Don't let the witch break your spirit. Deny her. Erase her. As long as there's at least one person who denies her. She's an illusion that can't exist.
Are you okay? Jessica? Aniki!
George was no longer shaped like a person. He looked like a pile of leftover meat after the good, delicious meat had been scraped off to be cooked. The only traces left of his time as a human were the shape of his lower jaw and ribcage. And it was clear that Jessica, who was covered with a steadily strengthening redness, was approaching the same fate.
Oh, Battler, quick, believe in Beatrice. If you don't, everyone's magic will wear off.
Maria, it's all over your body too!
I resurrect all the dead with my magic.
But as long as you don't believe, that magic will hold no true power. But I'm sure that a man of your caliber won't be broken by something like this, right?
Battler, we didn't want to doubt our friends. We refused to face reality and gave in to the witch. But I know you. I know you won't give in to the witch.
Jessica!
No, wait, let me turn down my mic just a little bit more.
Jessica! Jessica!
How sad. Jessica met the same end. Just like George, she ended up like the butcher's leftovers. Broken apart, melted, and all mixed up, so you couldn't tell which was George and which was Jessica anymore.
Battler, Don't cry. Beatrice will resurrect the dead over and over. So there's nothing to be sad about. So, even if we die, we're still just fine.
The redness began eating into the whole of Maria's body. When he saw this, the foolish battler screamed out loud. I peeked it anyway? Damn. Oh well, I tried.
You bitch! You won't get away with this! I'll never forgive you! You call yourself a witch? You call this magic? I'll deny you with every last fiber of my being! I don't care what happens. There's not a chance in hell I'm ever gonna accept you! If you want me as an enemy that bad, I'm gonna make sure you get what's coming to you! I'll get you for this! You're gonna pay for this! You're going to fucking pay! You're gonna regret making Ashirami a battler your enemy! I'll deny you no matter what! Every last impossible thing, I'll explain it all with humans! I'll erase every cell of you from this world!
Prison strip, let's go. And while this credit roll is going, and I'm waiting for the little after credit stinger, I have time to eat this croquette. We have an after credit stinger, and then we have the Witch's Tea Party, which is only like, give or take, maybe 10, 12 minutes or so, if that. And then we'll be at our ending discussion. Madam, this is a Wendy's after credits. Yes, there is like a little stinger at the end of the credits. I'm gonna mute for a second. Okay, I'm muting. Cat Thulu asked, hey Marcy, random question, but who is your favorite Umineko character? My favorite character in Umineko actually has not been introduced properly yet. But if I had to pick a second favorite, or like a favorite from the characters that we have met, I mean, I gotta be real with you, probably Beatrice. Okay, we're coming up on the stinger. It is not the rat. I do like the rat, though. Sorry for everybody in the chat who doesn't know what I mean when I say the rat. You'll find out a very long time from now. Beatrice does kind of have the same style as Celestia Ludenberg. Listen. Don't call me out.
You speak well, battler.
That's the kind of thing that can divert me from my 1,000 years of boredom. Come, explain. Try explaining it all with your so-called human tricks. And learn how lowly humans are. Let's see you try to use what humanity has built up in 100 years to oppose my 1,000. It will make forcing you to submit all the more enjoyable. So tell me, Battler, what about Maria's letter? How the 6 were killed? The shutter? The receipt seal? The locked room with the chain? Canon in the boiler room? Genji and the others in the parlor? Natsuhi's suicide? The riddle of the epitaph? The location of the hidden gold? Come, Battler. Why don't you show me the power of humans?
I hope you enjoyed my Beatrice cackle. I've been practicing it. And now, we have one segment of episode 1 left. The question marks. Welcome to the tea party of the inhuman. Or the unhuman. Inhuman? Unhuman? Whatever.
What sort of tea should I prepare next? You have a free choice of any brand that was ever was throughout the ages. Dried plum tea. Those dried plums that go for 200 yen a pack. For 1,000 years I've been fond of black tea, but I did not know of such a thing. I will never tire of living in this world. Beato, you don't have to display such hostility. I'm just a wandering witch. I didn't come with the intention of violating the rules of your territory.
So first of all, everybody's asking who this is. Let us take a look at our characters menu. Oh wait, well, she's not there yet. We can look at Beatrice's profile though. The Golden Witch, who has lived for 1,000 years. She has already surpassed the limits of humans, and it is said that she will appear in response to a human summons, just as demons do, to lend them her power for a price. Likes black tea and ice cream, hates boredom and those who deny her existence. Anywho, this person, I'm not going to go too into it in case there are people in the chat who, again, still want to read Higurashi, but this is Bernkastel, and she heavily resembles a character from Higurashi named Rika. Now that being said, for those of you wondering, oh, does that mean I have to read Higurashi to understand things about Bernkastel? No, you don't. You'll still be able to understand the story of Umineko perfectly well if you don't know who Bernkastel, or you don't know the things about Bernkastel that, ties her to that character from Higurashi. But if you do read Higurashi and you understand that person's character, then it will enrich your understanding of Bernkastel's character, but it's not necessary. So, that being said, just, there you go. But let it be said, for people asking if Bernkastel is Rika, the answer to that question is not quite. As for why she's here, you're just gonna have to wait and see.
There is not even a sliver of hostility. I'm just terribly concerned about seeing that the legendary witch Lady Bernkastel is well attended to.
Is Higurashi good? Yes, I love Higurashi. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite pieces of media ever, along with Umineko. Now we got her profile. Bernkastel, the Witch of Fragments who has lived for 1,000 years. It is said that she lives in a world where concepts like fate and possibility can be made visible, observes the fates of humans, and sometimes interferes. In other words, sometimes she is you, and also is your only friend. Understand? Likes wine and spicy foods, hates boredom and those who never learn.
You misunderstand. I'm powerless. Before a witch such as you, with the dreadful power to kill a person 100 times over, I'm completely powerless. That a powerless witch like you possesses a power that none can approach is what is truly terrifying. After all, you fended off the great witch Lady Lambda Delta as a lone piece. I only won an endurance contest. She simply got tired. That's not what Lady Lambda Delta said, though.
Too much humility can be unseemly, Lady Bernkastel.
That girl has a dreadful power.
You look too young to drink wine. Yeah, Bernkastel is an adult. She just looks not like it for very specific reasons, which kind of relate to the Higurashi thing that I don't want to spoil for you, so.
The power to kill a person without fail. However, there's no such thing as without fail in this world. Just as, no matter how many times you divide 1, you can never make it 0. That girl has the power to bring that closer and closer to virtually 0, and give rise to a virtually absolute certainty. I hope I never have to fight such a terrifying witch again. However, you have a power that manifests without fail, except for 0. Although you say there is no such thing as without fail in this world, you possess an infallible power yourself. How very terrifying. The power to kill a person endlessly. I think you're the more terrifying one. Such jests. From your point of view, mine is but a trifling power. The phrase flattery will get you nowhere was made for this situation. Call it payment for my stay here. I'm a fleeing traveler who crosses the Kakira.
This is a real Keikaku means plan kind of moment.
I am a fleeing traveler who crosses the fragments, continually running from boredom. I simply came around because I'd heard that you'd started something interesting. Rest assured, I'll leave of my own accord as soon as you start to bore me.
I'm deeply and humbly delighted to have the great Lady Bernkastel as an observer. And so, your impression?
Lambda Delta is terrifying because of her cruelty. However, she was a girl I could understand. You do seem to possess affection, but I can't understand you at all. That's why you're much more terrifying than her.
I'm fickle by nature. Do forgive me. Besides, I believe you also enjoy trusting your fate to the roll of the fickle dice. Is that not so, Lady Bernkastel?
When I roll the dice, I have a roll I clearly want to get. Unlike you. You, on the other hand, anticipate all outcomes. And whatever the roll might be, you're never disappointed. Whatever roll the dice show you, you are satisfied without fail. In that sense, you far surpass me. You're one I really don't want to fight. Inside of you, there's nothing but 0. That's why I can't win against you with my power. The worst matchup. Perhaps Lambda Delta, on the other hand, has a good matchup against you, since she would likely be able to kill your endlessness.
Truly, tea is best drunk in the company of a witch. It's never boring.
Good to hear. Boredom is the sole poison that can kill me. So don't kill me, alright? Lady Beatrice, endless witch.
If such is your wish, I shall show you an even better time. In that case, wouldn't it be best if I brought the next chessboard in right away? It seems that the next tale would do more for you than a refill of tea. Just wait for a moment.
Something troublesome seems to have taken a liking to you. I'd really like to lend you my power, but as you just heard, that girl's power and mine have a very bad matchup. Unfortunately for you. But you really are pitiful, so I'll help you out just a bit. First of all, about that girl. She does have an existence that goes by the name of Beatrice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's a woman with an individual body. Do you understand what I mean? In other words, she's not some human. Her existence is a personification of the rules of this world. To beat her, you have to expose the rules of this world and unravel them. This can be likened to learning the rules of chess by watching a few games. First, take a good look over the chessboard, and notice the movements and rolls of the pieces. Then, look for the conditions required to win at her game. When you've managed to reveal all of these things, her heart will be exposed. After that, you can rip it apart or crush it as you please. I'm being quite generous. Back when I was once human, it took me 100 years to realize even this much. This is my meager farewell gift to you, the pitiful one captured by Beato. It's like a single spoon. A spoon can be used for more than just drinking soup. You can use it to dig through the prison you're locked in, or as a weapon to gouge the witch's eyes out. Of course, you can also use the spoon to continually sip the watery soup inside your eternal prison. Don't get the wrong idea. I have no intention of becoming your ally. I do feel empathy for you, but I won't help you. It's like how someone sitting in front of a television cannot reach the characters on screen no matter how much they yell at them. That's how you can tell I am a witch, you see. I intend to enjoy the endless tale that Beato is going to weave until I tire of them, but I'm sure that alone won't hold my interest. That's why I'll lend you my power. It's also that I don't get tired of this. I'm the cruelest witch in the world. No matter who the opponent may be, I'll absolutely make them surrender. Even if that's Beatrice, the Endless Witch. You are my game piece. Give it your best shot. I'll give you some advice sometimes, out of her sight. Don't bore me, okay?
And hey, wouldn't you look at that? The menu has changed. Because it knows that we have unlocked the next episode. But we're not going to be doing that this time, obviously. So now we've arrived at the end of episode 1. And now I can tell you what we're going to be doing in the future. So, yeah, these streams actually became a little bit more watched than I thought they would. Don't go to the opening. These became a little bit more watched than I thought they would. So, and yeah, there are clearly people in the audience that are hooked now. So, I will go ahead and announce that yes, I will continue Umineko. I will move on to episode 2. That being said, however, this whole weekly episode 1 thing has been kind of a, rare thing for me. I don't usually do weekly streams because I just don't usually have the time or energy to schedule them so consistently. So I will disclaim, I don't know if the streams are going to remain as consistent as they have been during episode 1 in the future. I don't know if there is going to be a super consistent schedule going forward, but they will happen, just as Danganronpa Another will also happen. That's the whole thing, right? Is that I have a lot of different streams that I want to do. I have some very interesting and fun ideas that I actually want to do for streams this year, but obviously they can't all be done in a row, and they also can't all be done one at a time. Or, well, that basically means the same thing. I don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. But, yeah. So that being said, it will keep happening. I just can't guarantee you exactly when it will happen. I'm going to take probably a little bit of a break. And I do want to get to scheduling the next Danganronpa Another stream sometime soon as well. But, you know, we'll see what the future holds. The beginning of this year has been really crazy with how, like, you know, getting work done and being sick and trying to manage finances, and that's still happening. And by the way, I should scroll up because I missed this. Peanut Kicks donated $5. Thank you so much for your donation. But yeah. Yeah, it's happening. That's all I need to say for now. I don't need to get into all the nitty gritty, I guess. But we will be continuing onward. But for now, that is episode 1 of Umineko. And while we sit here, I guess I'll just like go to the characters menu for episode 1 or something. By the way, I can show you a cool little feature while we sit here, because this is the time where I want you guys in the chat who have never read Umineko before to give me your thoughts. What do you think is happening? Do you think it's magic? Do you think it's real? Do you think Beatrice is real? Do you think it's being engineered by somebody? What do you think's going on? I want to see all of your theories for just a few minutes. And while we're doing that, yeah, I'll show you what the execute button does. You can cycle through all of the states that they were in and like what it said at different parts in the chapter. So, you know, for example, this is what it said when Kraus was alive. If I execute him, it says what it said when he was killed. So we can get the different sides of the thing. Resurrect. Beatrice, the golden witch who has lived for 1,000 years. She's apparently, well, yeah, it says the same thing, but she is on the human side of the board. Interesting. I wonder why they did that. Okay, let's look at some of what all of you are saying. I think it's meta bullshit. Positive. True. Never wrong with being open with your feelings. Umineko does have a lot of meta, but I love meta. But anyway. What does it show if you kill the children? Well, let's see. Battler. Aha, yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. Ushiramiya Battler is missing. The fool who spoiled the world where everyone could have been happy. Beatrice is very angry, but for some reason she looks like she's having a lot of fun. Almost as if he's the first fun new toy she's had in 1,000 years. If only this idiot could hurry up and see you like the rest. Also, Iconic Laser gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. I guess we should look at George and Jessica and Maria as well. So let's look at Jessica. Missing. Even though she was given a precious invitation to the Golden Land, a single idiot refused to believe in the witch, and all of that magic went away. Afterwards, she was chewed to bits by demons and went to hell. George. Missing. Even though he was finally reunited with everyone and all were getting along so well in the Golden Land, all of that magic was spoiled thanks to that stubborn idiot. Afterwards, he was chewed to the bone by demons and went to hell. And finally, Maria. Missing. Hee 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 hee. Now then, I'm going to scroll up and look at some of your speculations again before I move on. The thing I was going to point out was brought up by Battler, but I did notice that one of the possibilities he brought up was how the murders in and then there were none were done, which was fun. Yeah, Ryukishi was very inspired by and then there were none for Umineko. He has admitted this, and I think it is. If you've read that book, it is very obvious. I'm so sure Grandpa went out that window. I will stand by this till I die. Well, who knows? Kinzo is just crazy enough. He could do it. I would never put it past Grandfather. I think Daniel the Spaniel, I think the last parts are to be trusted. It's all about perspective. There will be a series of mysteries, and the focus will be trying to explain them through human means. Yes. So it is magic, but there are rules, I think, based on the final thing. I think there were a few episodes/games, as the Blue Witch said, Battler will learn rules and try to work out how to win. Perhaps so. I guess we'll have to see. They're all playing the board game Clue with special house rules and are just really serious role players. We play Clue for keeps over here at Grandpa's Mansion. There's a very high production escape room that they failed at. I mean, I would fail at it too. There's no way I would be able to succeed at this. Let's see. I do think Beatrice exists, but I'm not sure that she is the culprit. Okay, interesting thought. Would be an interesting bit of misdirection if that was the case. I'm curious about something Kraus said before he died. He mentioned that he's probably gonna... That was not Kraus. That was Rudolph. That was Battler's daddy, Rudolph. He said that. But, yeah. Wonder what that was about. I wonder why he said that. Do Shannon and Canon get new stuff since they were in the Tea Party? Maybe? Let me see. No. It's just the same as they were before. George went to hell, LMAO. Yeah. My theory is that someone in the family is killing them but uses magic to kill them. Like one of the circles can allow the killer to get in the locked room and kill Ava and Hideyoshi. Okay, that's an interesting thought. Keeping the discussion on magic open. I'm glad there's some magic people in the chat. That's one of the most interesting parts of the Umineko debate while it's ongoing, is the whole magic versus reality sort of thing. I just want to say thanks for the introduction. I'm visually impaired, so it's difficult for me to want to get into text-heavy games unless I know I'm going to enjoy them. I'm loving this. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you can get into it. Since the magic wore off, I think she's gone too. Theory, this is a game of D&D and Beatrice as the DM. Oh god, that reminds me, I actually did see like an Umineko D&D AU art one time where it's like Beato sitting at like the DM's chair and she's like, okay, you know, roll for like discovering the body, and like Battler rolls a nat 1 and she's like, man, fuck, you don't even you just completely you don't even recognize them. It's really funny. Another theory is I had Battler will be the only one to remember the last episode and have to Battler with his internal misbelief to convince the others to believe to save themselves. Ooh, that would be very interesting. And the way saw traps are also failed escape rooms. Yeah. Maybe Beatrice is a junior. She looks about 20 to 30. I wonder. I think for the locked room with Ava and Hideyoshi, maybe there could have been a person already inside the bathroom. Perhaps. I definitely think Beatrice originally existed as a human. Whether or not she's a witch now is debatable. She may have either turned into a witch or the witch has taken her form. I think that is an interesting line of thought. I'm sorry that I have to give such vague answers to a lot of these, but really, I am actually very interested in seeing your theories. Maria's Kokichi in a past life. Get out of here. Get out of here. What if Beatrice is the mastermind and telling people what to do, like she's not doing it herself? Perhaps. I'm only on episode 3, and just accept the fact that it's magic, I'm too dumb to come up with anything else. You have to keep thinking. That's the thing. You gotta keep thinking. Having been watching since almost 3 hours in, I honestly thought the magic was unquestionably real. Well, you know. Battler's entire existence is going to be disagreeing with the entire cast, I swear to God. Also, Beatrice is Italian, right? Why has nobody commented on that? See this being a great D&D setting. No, absolutely. I think if you know the rules of how Umineko works, I think making it like an Umineko D&D would be really fun. I actually have a Umineko fan character, as a matter of fact. But considering that the elements I based that fan character on are only introduced in like episode 2 onward, I should probably wait to say anything about them until afterward. So, so fun knowing the answers, but I love the theorizing. It's what makes the game so engaging when you participate outside the game. True, exactly. That's why I love showing it to people, because I love to see what they think. Thing with the locked room and with Ava and Hideyoshi is it's more than possible to undo and redo the chain from outside, like how taped rubber band can undo the chains in hotel rooms. Buddy, you are in for a world of hurt saying that. You are so in for it. You have no idea what lies in store for you. We have 7 more chapters to figure this weird stuff out. That's true. You have plenty of time. You don't even have all of the answers you need yet. Were Rudolph and Kyrie the only ones of the original 6 with completely unrecognizable faces? No, I think... Who was it? I think it's like Kraus had an unrecognizable face. I think it was... No, wait. Kraus had half of his face. Rosa... Hold on. Let me look at these. Yeah, Rosa had a completely smashed face. How about Goda? Goda also had a completely smashed face. Shannon was just half of her face. Rudolph had a completely smashed face. And so did Kyrie. Yeah, both Kyrie and Rudolph had their faces completely smashed. So the ones with half faces were Kraus and Shannon. Okay, this is going to be longer than the Bible. It is literally longer than the Bible. That is true. I don't think the magic is real. I think Kinzo ordered the servants to enact the epitaph up into, including permission to kill him or each other. Woo! Grandpa's on some stuff. But an interesting thought. Honestly, dreams and hallucination stuff is what's making me hesitant on everything being magic. Not sure, though, because there hasn't been a lot of things to that. I can't wait to hear about your character when we can understand. Thank you. Battler and Beatrice are just yin and yang. One doesn't believe in magic and witches, and one is straight up a witch using magic. Their souls are stuck in a loop of eternal fighting or something. I do fucking know. Yeah, when one guy on r/atheism meets the most magical woman you've ever seen, they lock in a battle of wits for all of eternity. Sharing to friends forever, you know, roughly at the end of chapter 5, it's been fun seeing them theorize. Yes. The butterflies feel like the thing that would be the most difficult to explain. For the murders, you just need a Rube Goldberg machine, but we're with the butterflies if we're explaining this humanly. Who knows? I wonder if there's an explanation for scenes like that. I wonder if there's anything in particular that you should be thinking when you look back at those scenes and how they're framed. I missed it. What was Rosa's description? Oh yeah, okay. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. I'll be seeing her again, so I'm not lonely. Half-joke theory. Beatrice isn't a witch. She's a prosecutor who got really bissed at the legal system, so she binged some true crime and set up a rich family to fail for her amusement. I mean, no better motive, really. I only know a tiny amount of Umineko, but I feel like I'd be cheating if I put a real theory of mine. That's fair. If you feel like it would be revealing too much, then, you know, caution and all. Theory for the next chapters. You get alternative routes for how a slight chance starts off a chain of how dies and whether the gold is found, like regular routes, except designed like this because no choice. Interesting thought. Probably a mix of legit and magic and real stuff to be intentionally throw everyone off. She rolls around in the pollen. That's why the butterflies are there. Considering the purgatory thing is in an episode, it probably exists to an extent. Interesting thought. Definitely Maria. Yeah, definitely Maria. I know it's her. She's the narrator of these. I definitely think episode 2 will be the same result with everyone dying, but it will happen in different ways and play out differently to give us / Battler a chance to learn the rules. Wonder if the narrator is consistent in these bios, because Maria has no reason to call Canon furniture in his death. Interesting thought. I want to say, although this is mostly projection of stuff, the entire Tea Party scene makes me think of arguments I've heard about whether or not God exists. I mean, hey, you know, could be intentionally paralleling some things like that. Who knows? I have a theory based on Higurashi, but it has spoilers for Higurashi, so I shan't say. Fair enough. The only genuine theory I had was the Yang Yang one, and the stuff like Maria's cookie. Can you execute Beatrice? Let's see. Can we? It is futile for a human like yourself to dream of killing me. Even if you fire bullets at me, they will merely bounce back as though by a mirror and strike you down. However, there is one single way to kill me. You grasp this method in the palm of your hand. I doubt a mediocre fool like you could ever do it, of course. Kee-hee-hee-hee-hee. Cackle, 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 cackle. Without getting into any spoilers, which arc is your favorite? My favorite arc is probably number 4, closely followed by 8. And then, like, this one, the one we just finished, episode 1, is probably, like, number 3 for me on the tier list. What are my thoughts on Burke, if I can give a non-spoiler take? I assume you mean Bernkastel by that. Yeah, that's it's difficult to explain my thoughts on Bernkastel without getting into deep spoilers, but for now, what I will say is I think she is an interesting inversion and complement to the themes of the previous story, and I think the space that she occupies in this story is very special and interesting. And that's all I can really say. I bet that's what happened to Natsuhi. Oh yeah, people noticed that, huh? What if someone cooked spaghetti the wrong way and offended the Italian witch? Now she just haunts them to pay for their crimes. I mean, who knows? I doubt the Battler would be good at making spaghetti. Let's maybe that's what happened all along. Where'd you put chapter 6? Chapter 6 is like, I don't know, it's kind of strange. It's in the lower range of Umineko episodes for me, but that being said, I think all of the episodes are good. So even when I say it's on the lower range, that doesn't mean it's bad. I just don't think it's as good as the rest. But the complicated thing about it is that it also does have a lot of really good, important scenes too, so it's like, I don't know, conflicted. My fave has always been 7. 7's also really good. My fave is 5, but that's because my favorite character shows up in it. I'm biased. I know who you're talking about. I'm hoping some religious symbolism because that does it for me. Also, what if Beatrice was just my Italian friend? What then? She can be your religious symbolism and your best Italian friend. Real reason the massacre started is because Goda fucked up the spaghetti. Don't do Goda like that. He's an excellent chef. He wouldn't fuck up the spaghetti. That's the one thing he's good at. Exercise the House of Parmesan. There's no bad Umineko chapters, yeah. I think that it ends with Kinzo dead for realsies. Maybe. We'll see. How would I rank chapter 1 based on the other chapters? Yeah, episode 1 is my 3rd favorite overall. Why don't we go ahead and look at the witch side for a second, by the way, because I'm curious. Okay, yeah, it's the same message for whenever you hit execute on Beatrice. What happens if you hit execute on Burn? By continuing to think, I live on for all eternity. In other words, if I stop thinking, I can die at any time. However, I can revive whenever I want if I start thinking again. So I'm fickle and inconstant. I live as I like, die as I like, revive as I like. Interesting. I wonder what that means. Egg. 4 is so low on your list. We're gonna have to fight each other over this. Square up. No, I'm just kidding. But... Rika Socrates arc. That's a very good way to describe Bernkastel in some ways. Burns should just say, I wish. Also true. Things are heating up in the Umineko community. Oh boy, oh boy.
All right. Yeah, somebody... What? Wooly. I am interested in Beatrice being described as a concept, but I am too lazy to think too much right now. Well, don't worry about it. We will get a little bit of elaboration on that as we go. It is... The idea has sort of just been introduced to us, but it will get continually elaborated upon. Tengen would be a witch. No, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. What if every time Battler flips the chessboard, another person has to die? Way too many people would have to die. That's disrespectful to witches. I think Tengen is a human side, but says a witch did it. Does the Umineko anime only cover the first chapter, or... No. The Umineko anime is... Okay, first of all, in case you didn't know, the Umineko anime is really bad. It is extremely bad. I talked about this before in a previous stream, but basically the Umineko anime was made mid-production on the VN. They didn't, like, know the full story. Therefore, they, like, get things factually wrong quite often. Like, they literally make the mystery unsolvable, and it only adapts the first 4 of 8 episodes. And for those of you who have watched all of these streams, there is also the fact that, like, to give you an example of how rushed and awful the anime is, all of the streams that we have had up until this point, all of episode 1, all of those hours, do you want to know how many anime episodes that was done in? 4. 4 25-minute anime episodes was how many episodes the Umineko anime took to cover the past 3 streams of nearly 20 hours of runtime. Not even 4 hours. 4 episodes. That's like 2 hours. That's like a little less than 2 hours. It is atrocious. I can't even describe to you how bad it is. So, yeah. The only good adaptation of Umineko that exists, well, until recently, the only Umineko adaptation that was good that existed is the manga adaptation. The manga adaptation is actually pretty good. It does get fast-tracked in some places, but it also kind of acts as a little bit of a director's cut to the original VN, because the VN leaves some things a little ambiguous by the end that the manga actually goes to the trouble of, like, depicting front, like, fully front-facing. They're like, okay, the manga is the last time, you know, we're going to be able to show this story probably, so we're just going to give you the answers. It's really good. Even if you finish the VN, I would highly recommend reading the last episode adaptation in the manga, because it is fantastic. Now, that being said, yes, people have noticed my phrasing until recently. They began a stage play, and the stage play is really good. It's really good. Now, it's not finished yet, so maybe the later episodes will end up being not as good as the earlier ones, but the episode 1 adaptation was, like, I want to say, a 4-hour stage play, and they did the entirety of episode 1 in that stage play, and it's really good. Like, it's genuinely pretty awesome. The actors are awesome. The stage stuff is, like, really cool. The cinematography, like, their coordination and all of the stage effects, It's great stuff. Now, link, please, is what somebody's saying. Sorry, that's going to be a little bit difficult. You're going to have to find that on your own, because it is not legally available for free anywhere. So, you know. Now, that being said, the thing about the Umineko stage plays that has me wondering how it's going to turn out is the fact that Umineko, the original visual novel, is 8 episodes. However, I think they've already confirmed that the stage play is only going to be 4. And also, Ryukishi, the thing that makes me a little less hesitant about it is that Ryukishi is a, like, heavy consultant on it. He is super involved with how the stage play scripts are being written, and he has said in the past that if he went back and rewrote Umineko from the beginning, he would probably make it about half as long. So I'm imagining that the stage play is even more of a sort of like director's cut, where it's probably going to end up being pretty different by the end. I don't know how I'm going to like it because of that, because I'm so emotionally attached to the original version of the story, and I think every episode is necessary, and I love every character, and I love every scene. Well, maybe not every scene, but you know what I mean. But that being said, you know, I'm like a super fan of the original source material, so I don't know what the stage play is going to end up being like by the end, but I'm sure it'll probably be good. Is that why Ryukishi is making Kikonia only 4 episodes? That is one thing that I seem to think that seems to be the case. It's like he's gotten to the point where not only does he feel like, you know, he could be cutting down on stuff, but also he just like, I assume that he's at a point in his life where he's like, if I start another like whole 8 episode gauntlet, like I want to be able to finish it. You know what I mean? So you just admitted to loving George. No, please, no, please. Do you think a new When They Cry game is possible? Like a new insert animal When They Cry game? Well, I mean, Kikonia is ongoing. It's still not done yet, so I guess there's that. I'm not sure if he's going to do another one after that. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, he's old at this point. I don't actually think Ryukishi is that old, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he's at in his career at the moment. And also, he's writing for a new Silent Hill game, so he's pretty busy. Okay, I think the theories have sort of dwindled at this point, so I guess that's pretty much all I've got now. Wait, there's one more. Theory. Beatrice might be for generational trauma in the family maid form. Jessica mentioned early on about not seeing her parents in a certain lens, so magic is easier than backstabbing to digest. Interesting. I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, certainly. He is 50, apparently. Yeah, it's not, like, too bad. Yes, for somebody who asked in the chat, wait, he's working on Silent Hill. There is a game called Silent Hill F. He is writing the story of it. But, okay, anywho, I need to cut myself off. We've had a great, wonderful time here in Umineko Town. I don't know when the next stream will be coming specifically, but you can look forward to more Danganronpa Another and more Umineko in the future. So next time I see you for Umineko, I don't know when that will be, I will see you for Episode 2, Turn of the Golden Witch. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And by the way, if you haven't watched my Five Nights at Freddy's video yet, do that too, please. It'll help. Thank you. Okay, bye now. See ya!